it still could not fill the void of going from strangers to enemies, nearly losing their lives at each other's hands, only for fate to bring them back together again. Day by day, their feelings continue to grow. What kind of experience was that? Could the two of them let go of their past hostility and be together? To find out what happens in this thrilling and captivating story, please watch along with Hai. Don't forget to give Hai a like and subscribe to the channel for support. Thank you all very much. On a majestic mountain shrouded in mist, where human figures were barely visible, stood the secret realm of Parasol Perch Mountain, the homeland of the Phoenix clan. Rustling sounds came continuously from the nearby grass. A snowy white snake tail swiftly slipped through the undergrowth. Inside Parasol Perch Divine Palace, melodious music echoed through the air as countless beautiful women with graceful figures sang and danced, presenting a breathtaking sight. At the banquet, a young girl with an immature face sat absent-mindedly, staring at everything around her. Nearby, two people kept looking in her direction and quietly whispered to each other. Did you see that? That's the once untouchable fifth princess of the Phoenix clan. But after being reborn, she somehow seems like a completely different person. I heard Feng Wuyo became like this because she lost her inner core. Although she has reforged her immortal body, her cultivation and all memories from the past 800 years are gone. The other person looked shocked. She could still be reborn without an inner core? Is the Phoenix clan really that powerful? At that moment, a young man dressed in green raised a cup toward Feng Wuyo, his eyes full of adoration. A toast to Her Highness, the fifth princess. Hearing someone call her, Feng Wuyo instinctively turned around and politely replied, "Hello." Upon hearing her say hello, the young man felt as though countless bolts of lightning had struck him. Looking utterly dumbfounded, he stammered, Ashilo, is this really Feng Wuyo? Well, has Feng Wuyo ever been this gentle? Feng Wuyo unconsciously crushed the wine cup in her hand. With a sigh, she thought, ever since my rebirth, I've heard that line hundreds of times. I'm sick of it. Feng Wuyo sank into thought about her fate. It was a long story. 2 years ago, she encountered an unexpected calamity while away from home and was gravely injured all over. Fortunately, Taoist Ling Xiu saved her, and she was ultimately reborn with only a trace of her remaining soul. In her despair, when she could not remember who she was or where she came from, a man appeared and anxiously called her name. "Wuyo, are you all right?" But when she awoke, she discovered that not only had she lost her inner core, but she had also lost her memories. She could not even recognize her own family. Staring blankly at the unfamiliar man before her, she asked softly, "Who are you?" Hearing this, the man could not stop himself from crying. With a voice gentle enough only for her, he said, "I'm your eldest brother. I've come to take you home." Sensing the sincerity in his words, she slowly extended her hand and placed it in his palm, murmuring to herself, "The eldest brother?" As she hesitated in doubt, Taoist Ling Xiu's voice sounded behind her, silently confirming that the man had spoken the truth. "That's right. He isn't lying to you. The Phoenix clan is your home, so return with him." Though countless investigations were conducted afterward, no one discovered anything concerning that unexpected calamity. No one knew why she had gone out that day, nor who had injured her in the end. Now, the only way to uncover the truth was to recover her inner core. Back in the present, seeing her absent-minded expression, Feng Lingzhong, her eldest brother, walked over and called, "Wuyo." She snapped back to her senses and brightened at once when she saw him. Quickly pouring him a cup of wine, she clinked cups with him. "Greetings, eldest brother." Feng Lingzhong took a sip and advised her with concern, "Wuyo, don't take that young prince of the Peacock clan to heart. He used to like you very much. He was just frightened by the old you and hasn't adjusted to your current personality yet." She voiced the doubt in her heart. "Eldest brother, is the current me not good?" Feng Lingzhong froze. Before him seemed to stand two Feng Wyas, the cold and distant one from the past, and the innocent girl of the present. He gently shook his head, placed a hand on her head, and softly stroked her hair. "No matter when, my little sister is always the best." Enjoying his affection, she smiled happily. "I understand." Overcome with excitement, she picked up the entire wine jug from the table, tipped back her head and drained it in one go. Thank you, eldest brother. I'll finish this whole jug. Seeing her remarkable capacity for liquor, he gave her a thumbs up with a proud expression. Hee hee, no matter when, my little sister's drinking capacity is the best. As the two chatted, an announcement from the herald drew Feng Lingzhang's attention elsewhere. An envoy from the Dragon Clan has arrived. The third prince of the Dragon Clan offers congratulations on the Phoenix Clan's fifth princess's 800th birthday. Feng Wuyo stared wide-eyed at the newcomer. Suddenly, a hand landed on her shoulder. It was her fourth brother, Feng Tianran. He waved lightly and called, "Little Wuyo, come with me." Seeing her hesitate, Feng Lingzhang drank his wine and reassured her, "Don't worry, I'll handle things here. Go outside and get some fresh air with fourth brother." Her heart immediately felt lighter. Looking at him as though he were her savior, she said, "All right, thank you, eldest brother." Feng Tianran took her hand and hurriedly led her away. When they arrived beneath a large tree, he released her hand and swiftly climbed up as though searching for something. Feng Wuyo stood below and looked up in confusion. "Fourth brother, what are you looking for?" Still searching through the branches, Feng Tianran smiled as he answered, "That old Taoist from Lady Palace is here. He said he wanted to give you a present, so he asked me to bring you outside." After finding what he wanted, Feng Tianran elegantly jumped down from the tree. "I wanted to give you my gift first. I can't let that old man outdo me." Excitedly, he took out an incredibly ugly doll. Its head was bald except for 4 lonely strands of hair. Feng Tianran had acted so mysteriously that she had expected something extraordinary. "Tajda, what do you think? I found this little trinket in the mortal world. Do you like it?" Looking at the one-of-a-kind doll, Feng Wuyo eagerly hugged it to her chest. "Of course I like it." Feng Tianran brushed off his hands in satisfaction and reminded her, "I knew you would like such cheap, tiny, and ugly things. Keep it safe and don't let your eldest brothers see it. Otherwise, they'll mock my taste." She smiled and nodded repeatedly. "All right, I understand. Thank you, fourth brother." Soon after, Taoist Lingshu appeared as well, carrying a bamboo basket covered with cloth. No one knew what was inside. Stroking his snowy white beard, he called, "Your Highness, the fifth princess." As soon as he appeared, countless eyes turned toward him. "Look, that's Taoist Lingshu from Lady Palace." Someone else added, "Taoist Lingshu truly treats the fifth princess well. He personally came to celebrate her birthday." After receiving the gift, Feng Wuyo and her fourth brother respectfully cupped their hands in greeting. "Greetings, Taoist Lingshu." He waved dismissively and said unhurriedly, "All right, no need for formalities. Take a look at this old Taoist gift and see whether you like it." When Feng Tianran pulled off the cloth, he cried out in surprise, "Why is it a snake?" In contrast, Wuyo was rather intrigued by the gift. She reached out her small arm to touch the snake's icy body. It had no fur, yet it looked adorable. In truth, the snake was Chi Feiqi of the Serpent Clan. Half asleep, he heard the word gift, and a huge question mark appeared in his mind. A gift? I only took a nap on my way to Parasol Perch Mountain to find my mortal enemy. How did I wake up and become someone else's present? Chi Feiqi looked around. When he saw the words Parasol Perch Divine Palace on the plaque before him, he was utterly shocked. Wait, this is Parasol Perch Divine Palace, the territory of the Phoenix Clan's royal family. He immediately drew a conclusion. This little girl is the one whose birthday is being celebrated. Doesn't that make her Feng Wuyo, the Phoenix Clan's princess? A dangerous glint flashed in his eyes, and his long tongue flicked out repeatedly. I searched everywhere without finding her, yet now she has fallen into my hands without any effort. Feng Wuyo, 2 years ago, you destroyed my cultivation and vanished. This time, I've finally found you. Just then, Wuyo's voice made Chi Feiqi warily retreat into the basket. Taoist Lingshu, may I keep it? He answered calmly, "Of course." Inside the bamboo basket, Chi Feiqi wondered blankly, "Keep what?" But Feng Tianran disagreed. He stepped forward and asked Taoist Lingshu politely, "Forgive my boldness, but the Serpent Clan has always been known for being sinister, deceitful, and cruel. Why would you give a snake to Wuyo?" Taoist Lingshu did not answer directly, merely saying with deep meaning, "This is a secret of heaven. Since it is a heavenly secret, it cannot be revealed." Hearing that her fourth brother might refuse to let her keep the little snake, Wuyo's eyes filled with tears as she pleaded pitifully. Fourth brother, Feng Tianran, did not know how to refuse when he saw that expression. After all, He had only objected out of concern for her safety. Just then, Feng Lingzhang arrived and overheard their conversation. Seeing how much she liked it, he said, "If Wuyo likes it, let her keep it." Wuyo immediately beamed at having someone take her side. Eldest brother, Feng Lingzhang, fixed a cold, threatening gaze on the snake in Wuyo's arms. His next words seemed like a warning to Qi Feiqi. It is only a snake that cannot even assume human form. It poses no threat to Wuyo. If it dares to cause trouble, simply kill it. In contrast to Wuyo's delight at having her eldest brother's support, Qi Feiqi's face turned green. Despite his cold-blooded body, sweat poured down him beneath that overwhelming pressure. He cursed inwardly. This man is truly arrogant. At night, even while sleeping deeply, Wuyo did not forget to hold the pet she had received that morning. Her steady breathing filled the room. Once he noticed that she was asleep, Qi Feiqi suddenly opened his previously closed eyes. After shaking his body a few times, he abruptly grew larger. His cold eyes and long sharp fangs hovered near Wuyo's neck. I've finally waited for this chance, Feng Wuyo. Tonight will be your final night. Convinced that his plan would succeed, Qi Feiqi smugly crept closer to Wuyo. Across from him, Wuyo continued snoring soundly in the midst of a sweet dream. As though sensing the threat, the pendant around her neck began to glow continuously. Feeling the pressure emanating from it, he halted his plan. After looking closely, he recognized it as a protective artifact. Before Qi Feiqi's innocent-looking eyes, the pendant suddenly flashed. A powerful force slammed into him. Struck by the artifact, he was quickly forced back into his human form. Unexpectedly, Qi Feiqi was a devastatingly handsome man in human form. Though he used his own magical artifact to resist, he still could not contend with Wuyo's protective artifact. With a worried expression, he collapsed helplessly onto the floor. Golden rays of light pierced into his flesh like sharp arrows. In less than a minute, he was completely restrained and bound on the floor. He cast a cold glare at the girl sleeping carelessly on the bed and cursed inwardly. "Feng Wuyo, damn you! 2 years ago, you destroyed my cultivation and prevented me from ascending. And now you want to kill me again?" The only answer was someone's drooling sleeping posture. She rolled over carefree, laughing in her sleep. Ha! Qi Feiqi was frozen stiff when he realized that the little girl had not awakened at all. On the floor, he withdrew his gaze and ignored her, struggling with all his strength to break free from the bindings. Yet he failed to notice that Wuyo had actually been awake for a long time. She was merely pretending. She opened her eyes slightly to assess the situation and thought, "It seems the thing I'm keeping is not a pet, but my mortal enemy." For some reason, a crafty smile appeared on her face. "But an enemy may know more than anyone else about what happened to me that year. Ever since returning to the Phoenix clan, I've secretly searched for clues, yet I've made no progress." The more she thought about it, the brighter her smile became. She immediately came up with a plan to go with the flow. This snake arrived at just the right time. If I investigate his origins, I will surely uncover the truth. With that, she silently uttered one word: break. At her command, the artifact around her neck showed signs of cracking. She smiled smugly, looking exactly like a hunter stalking prey. "I'll loosen these immortal binding ropes for him first. No need to thank me, my silly little snake." Below, Qi Feiqi thought he was the hunter, unaware that he had already become prey in someone else's hands. Seeing the bindings snap into pieces, he became immensely pleased, believing his powers were formidable. Success. They're only insignificant immortal binding ropes. How could they possibly restrain me? After struggling for a while, Qi Feiqi was exhausted, and his spiritual power was no longer sufficient to maintain his human form. He gradually shrank back into his original form, a tiny little snake. His body was drenched in sweat, his face green, and he panted heavily. After resting enough, he crawled back to Wuyo's bedside and secretly checked whether she was awake. The person on the bed cooperatively continued snoring, her breathing even and rhythmic. Qi Feiqi had learned nothing from his previous failure. He refused to abandon his ambition and slowly slithered toward her. "Good. She isn't awake. I still have a chance." afraid that he would do something improper again. Weo slightly moved her hand, pretending to talk in her sleep. Chi Feiqi jumped in fright at her sudden movement and quickly curled himself into a ball. Feeling her lift him up, Chi Feiqi shivered down to the bone and lamented inwardly, "Damn it, I was foolish. This time I'm finished." Weo put on a confused expression and asked worriedly, "Little snake, why are you hurt? Did I roll over and knock you off the bed last night?" Hearing this, Chi Feiqi finally breathed a sigh of relief. He then put on an aggrieved, teary-eyed expression and looked toward her. Weo got out of bed and ordered her personal maid, Magpie. "The little snake is injured. Take him to be examined." Magpie promptly obeyed. "Yes, your highness, the fifth princess." Weo carefully watched until Magpie's figure, carrying the little snake, disappeared into the distance. After checking that no one else was around, she went to the window and loudly called the name of her pet, Shanxiu. As soon as she finished speaking, a little bird flew to the windowsill, cheerfully munching sunflower seeds. Shanxiu quickly said, "Master called me here because of that snake, didn't you?" Seeing that Shanxiu understood her so well, Weo rested her chin on her hand and smiled. "I originally thought it was just an ordinary little snake that could gather information from me everywhere, like you do. I never expected it to come to take revenge on me." Shanxiu's eyes widened in alarm. How could someone as adorable as Master have a grudge against it? She toyed with the protective artifact around her neck and gave a cold smile. "Shanxiu, there are many things in this world that disguise themselves with cuteness." Shanxiu nodded as though that made perfect sense and gave an example. "Exactly, just like Master." Weo fell silent, unable to tell whether that was praise or criticism. Pointing a finger at Shanxiu, she instructed, "In short, watch him secretly from now on. If you discover anything unusual, report it to me immediately." "Understood." Seeing that she was unhappy, Shanxiu wisely stood at attention and answered loudly, "Yes, Master. No problem." Several hours later, in the courtyard pavilion, a lavish spread of delicacies from land and sea covered the table, looking utterly tempting. As Weo fed Chi Feiqi all kinds of delicious food, he smiled happily and completely forgot his grudge against her. Seeing him behave so obediently, she cheerfully fed him even more. Just then, she heard someone call beside her, "Little sister." Turning toward the voice, she cried out in delight, "Third brother." Second brother. Her second brother was Feng Kong, the man wearing a blindfold and sitting in a wheelchair. The person pushing him from behind was Feng Qi, Weo's third brother. Feng Qi plucked a blade of grass, walked over, crouched down, and teased the little snake. "We saw your snake getting medicine at the infirmary earlier." Seeing the little snake ignore him, Feng Qi said indignantly, "Hey, it didn't even greet us." Chi Feiqi merely gave Feng Qi an indifferent glance. He thought resentfully, "If I open my mouth, I'll scare you to death." Feng Kong walked over, took out a small bottle, and handed it to her, reminding her non-stop, snakes that have yet to gain sentience usually awaken their spiritual intelligence rather late, so it's normal that it cannot speak. "Little sister, this is for you." She accepted it and examined it curiously. "Second brother, what is this?" Only Chi Feiqi recognized the item's origins. His eyes lit up as he exclaimed inwardly, "Good stuff. This is truly good stuff?" Feng Qi stood up, tossed aside the blade of grass in his hand, and explained on Feng Kang's behalf, "Second brother's eyes have never recovered. Over the years, he and I have sought healers everywhere and collected quite a few top-grade spirit pills. They were all saved for you." Weo felt incredibly warm at always receiving such affection from her brothers. She stepped forward and gently encouraged him. "Those who do good will be rewarded. Second brother will surely encounter an opportunity to restore his eyes someday." Hearing the sadness in her voice, Feng Kong tenderly stroked her head. "Good little sister, it is second brother who has wronged you." Feng Qi looked at her with self-reproach and said solemnly, "Third brother and I were always away and rarely returned. When you met with misfortune 2 years ago, neither of us made it back in time. We let you suffer." Listening to the brother's heartfelt words, Chi Feiqi felt extremely displeased. He grumbled inwardly, "The one who suffered was obviously me." Understanding as ever, she merely shook her head. "Second brother, third brother, you do not need to blame yourselves. Cultivators who follow the heavenly Tao each have their own karma, and no one can interfere with it. Besides, aren't I doing very well now?" She looked at the little snake in her arms, gently touched its mouth, and said meaningfully, "I have family who dote on me now, and I also have my little snake by my side. As long as I can live happily, that is more important than anything else." Suddenly, Feng Pianran's voice sounded behind her. But I don't think this is right. Wuyo and Chi Feiqi turned around at the same time. Seeing him leaning against a nearby pillar, she asked softly, "Fourth brother, when did you get here?" When Chi Feiqi saw Feng Pianran glaring at him as though he wanted to devour him alive, he could not help swallowing repeatedly. He warned himself inwardly, "This man has been extremely hostile toward me since yesterday. I need to be careful." Without saying a word, Feng Pianran reached out to seize the little snake. Sensing danger, Chi Feiqi quickly dodged aside. Even Wuyo was startled by Feng Pianran's icy attitude. "Fourth brother, what is wrong?" Feng Pianran voiced his concerns. "Your protective artifact shattered, and this snake just happened to be injured. Don't you think that is rather suspicious?" Every word made Chi Feiqi's entire body turn cold. He could only put on a pitiful expression and look toward Wuyo. She had not expected her fourth brother to see through the situation so sharply, so she pretended to pick up the protective artifact and inspect it. Chi Feiqi seemed to sense that something was wrong. He thought vigilantly, "That's right. With my current lack of spiritual power, I could not have shattered her protective artifact. Last night, only she and I were there. Could she have done it herself?" Seeing her brother about to disrupt her plan to investigate her past, Wuyo suddenly became annoyed. "Fourth brother, it is only a snake that has not gained sentience yet." She put on a reluctant expression, pouting as she held the little snake close. "It has no spiritual power. How could it possibly break my protective artifact? Isn't that right, silly little snake?" In contrast to fourth brother's worried expression, second brother and third brother spoiled her completely and nodded in unison. "Yes, yes. As long as little sister is happy, that is all that matters." Seeing the hesitation in fourth brother's eyes, she walked over and said gently, "Perhaps I accidentally crushed the pendant while sleeping." She swiftly changed the subject. "Fourth brother, is there any way to repair it?" Feng Pianran examined the protective artifact for a while before lightly shaking his head. "It is only a low-grade protective artifact, after all. Another day, fourth brother will make you a better one." Seeing fourth brother agree, she happily lifted Chi Feiqi high and suggested excitedly, "Fourth brother, my silly little snake needs a protective artifact too." On the outside, she smiled innocently, but inwardly, she was laughing slyly. It would be best if it were a protective artifact that obeys its owner, one that must naturally remain under my control." Feng Pianran wanted to refuse. "Little Wuyo, it is just a snake. Do you know how precious the Phoenix Clan's protective artifacts are?" Seeing that Feng Pianran had no intention of making one for him, Chi Feiqi shot him a glare, turned away, and spat. "Huh, who wants one?" While he was cursing inwardly, he suddenly felt something wet fall onto his head. Chi Feiqi looked up suspiciously and was horrified to see Wuyo sobbing. "Fourth brother, I know my spiritual power is exhausted, and I cannot help anyone with anything. The only thing I am somewhat good at is caring for the spirit pets in this palace. At least I am not completely useless and incapable of doing anything." Hearing the aggrieved misunderstanding in her words, Feng Pianran's mind went blank. He was most afraid of making this little sister cry. He panicked, looking utterly flustered as he hurriedly explained, "Little Wuyo, fourth brother did not mean that." Seeing her cry, second brother and third brother came over heartbrokenly to comfort her. "Little sister, if fourth brother will not make one for you, third brother will." Second brother gently patted her shoulder and consoled her, "Little sister, do not be sad. As long as you are healthy, that is already the greatest help to us." Feeling her brother's sincere concern, Wuyo could not help wiping her tears and smiling happily. Having brothers really is wonderful. Seeing that she was smiling again, the three brothers finally sighed in relief and smiled along with her, their faces full of boundless affection. Feng Pianran walked over, repeatedly patted her head, and relented with helpless indulgence. "Fine, fourth brother will go make protective artifacts for you." She jumped up in delight and did not forget to call after him, "Thank you, fourth brother. Remember to make two." Without turning around, Feng Pianran simply waved his hand. "All right, I remember. One for the master and one for the pet, the kind that can sense each other." After what had just happened, Chi Feiqi felt somewhat unsettled. He frowned and thought. Feng Wuyo actually cried just to ask for a protective artifact for a snake. No, there must be a trap here. How could she possibly be so innocent? That afternoon, while returning to her room, she summoned Shan Xiu and asked, while I was away feeding the other spirit pets, "How was that silly little snake?" Shan Xiu looked extremely worried and truthfully reported that it had watched the snake all afternoon. It had not moved at all, and Shanxio did not know whether its injuries had worsened to the point that it could no longer move. When Wuyo returned, she stood outside the door and cautiously peered inside. But all that greeted her was silence. Seeing no movement from the little snake, she called softly, "Silly little snake?" The snake remained silent. As she approached, she discovered that something was wrong with it. She called out anxiously, "Silly little snake?" Holding the little snake in her hands, she was deeply worried when she saw that it barely seemed alive. Why is its breathing so weak? Chi Feiqi put on a frail, pitiful expression and shed helpless tears. Softened by the little snake's gaze, she hurriedly reassured it, "Do not be afraid. It is only a minor injury. You will recover soon." Chi Feiqi greedily eyed the small pouch at Wuyo's waist, secretly calculating. Everything in Shiwu Divine Palace is precious medicinal material. The Phoenix Clan's pills will definitely help increase my cultivation. Only by deliberately worsening my injuries will I get a chance to consume those pills. After channeling spiritual power into the little snake to heal it for some time, Wuyo discovered that its wounds remained exactly the same, as though her spiritual power had no effect at all. She asked in confusion, "How can that be? Logically speaking, the infirmary already treated you once. Your injuries should not be this severe." Seeing her ramble without getting to the point, Chi Feiqi frowned and cursed inwardly, "Stupid Phoenix." He repeatedly rammed his head against the small pouch at her waist. As if understanding something, Wuyo lifted the pouch and asked for confirmation. "Are you saying that these pills might help with your injuries?" Seeing that she had finally understood him, he nodded vigorously, afraid that she would change the subject again. She narrowed her eyes and smiled to herself, as though she had seen through the little snake's scheme. "Ha ha, so after acting for so long, you were just trying to swindle pills from me." She poured the contents of the small pouch into her palm. They were round pills like marbles, each in a beautiful color. Chi Feiqi practically shed tears of joy upon accomplishing his goal. "You are the one who wanted to eat them." After the little snake swallowed several pills, she innocently added, "Oh, right. My spiritual power is currently weak, so I cannot distinguish all these pills. I do not know whether they will actually help your injuries." She acted with complete conviction. Then she pretended to panic, slapped her forehead hard, and cried out, "Oh no, this is bad." Chi Feiqi had just swallowed 3 pills when he saw her expression. Frightened out of his wits, countless enormous question marks seemed to appear above his head as cold sweat poured down his body. He looked warily at Wuyo. She held out the pouch before him and explained awkwardly, "Sorry, I am so sorry. It seems I accidentally fed you poison just now." Seeing the huge word poison on the pouch, Chi Feiqi's entire body turned cold. He nearly wanted to reincarnate on the spot. He desperately retched and vomited the 3 pills back out, his face green as he cursed without stopping. "Damn Feng Wuyo. She really is not as simple as she looks." Chi Feiqi fled in panic, but she was faster. She grabbed him by the tail. He could only scream inwardly, "Antidote. Let me go and give me the antidote." She took out several more pouches, shook them, and proposed, "There must be an antidote in here. Why not try them all?" Chi Feiqi finally knew what fear was. He cried until he was nearly out of tears. "Boo-hoo. A pet snake's life is still a life. Please spare me forever, miss." But once Wuyo had made up her mind, how could she be swayed? She took out countless pills for Chi Feiqi to try. The first was a beautifying pill. As soon as he took it, he turned into a delicate little snake with a flower growing from his head. Next came an invisibility pill. After swallowing it, he seemed to become invisible, and Wuyo could not find him no matter where she looked. Finally, she gave him a voice-changing pill. After taking only one, he began singing melodiously, his voice surprisingly pleasant to hear. Wuyo grinned with satisfaction. After being tortured as her source of amusement for so long, Chi Feiqi felt as though his soul was about to leave his snake body. He cursed helplessly. "In this life, I hate every feathered creature." Seeing his listless appearance, she felt like teasing him again. She poked the top of his head and pretended to panic. "Oh no, this is terrible. Your poison seems to have gotten worse. You even have a poisonous bump growing on your head. What should we do? What should we do?" Blinded by rage, Chi Feiqi was truly furious beyond endurance and could not help cursing aloud. Damn it! As he sensed her drawing ever closer, with the smile on her lips growing increasingly cold, his entire body trembled. He vaguely realized that he seemed to have fallen into someone's trap. Wuyo radiated an overwhelmingly domineering aura, both sinister and unfathomable. She smiled coldly and asked, "Oh, so you can speak after all." Realizing that he had been exposed, Chi Feiqi could only hiss like an ordinary little snake. "This is bad. I am done for." The little snake thought, "It is over. Everything has been exposed." He continued hissing in an attempt to distract Feng Wuyo. She picked up the snake, shook it lightly, and said, "What is it? You cannot speak again now." The snake nodded with its life on the line. "Hiss, hiss, hiss." She mischievously continued, "How about I help you?" Chi Feiqi was terrified. "What? No, please." Feng Wuyo immediately waved her hand, her face filled with fascination. "My second brother said you have not awakened your spiritual intelligence, so you cannot speak. I only need to help you form a spiritual root. Then you will definitely be able to speak, cultivate, and perhaps even attain the Tao and ascend someday. But wait, stop. Give me 2 seconds." She propped her chin in both hands and smiled brightly. "This is my first time using this spell. If you feel uncomfortable, speak up loudly." "All right." Chi Feiqi shut his eyes in terror. Speaking would mean admitting that he had deceived Feng Wuyo, but remaining silent would mean being tormented by her. This phoenix was truly insidious. Unfortunately, his cultivation was restricted. He could endure it, but he could not use force. He could only rely on his wits. Then Feng Wuyo suddenly stopped and snapped her fingers. She said with a beaming smile, "Little snake, you can speak now." The snake in her hand looked extremely tense. "I am done for this time." Suddenly, Chi Feiqi began crying weakly, tears streaming down his face. "I hate phoenixes so much." She placed the little snake on the table and said, "Perhaps my spell was not advanced enough to help you form a spiritual root. Maybe I only imagined that sound." The little snake cried as though caught in a rainstorm, tears flowing everywhere. "Please spare me, miss." It continued hissing. Feng Wuyo reached out and rubbed the little snake. "Are you saying your injuries hurt?" The little snake thought, "Thanks to you, I am about to hurt myself to death." Suddenly, Feng Wuyo withdrew her hand, and the snake lunged forward, crashing straight into her hand. Carried by its momentum, the snake fell to the ground with a thud, landing face first. Feng Wuyo rushed forward, breaking out in cold sweat. She pretended to panic. "It is all my fault. Boo-hoo. I remember that there is a 1,000-year divine herb in the Sherwu Mountain secret realm called Spirit Heartgrass. It can cure all illnesses. I will go find it for you now." Shan Xiu suddenly flew over from nowhere and anxiously said to Feng Wuyo, "Master, your spiritual power is weak. The secret realm is guarded by a 3-headed divine phoenix. It is extremely dangerous. You cannot go." Hearing Shan Xiu's warning, Feng Wuyo suddenly looked at the snake and said, "I caused the little snake to become like this. For its sake, I have no choice but to go." Chi Feiqi was deeply moved by Feng Wuyo's words. Is she really doing this? Seeing Feng Wuyo determined to leave, Shan Xiu insisted on following her. "Master, I am going too." It was said that the Sherwu Mountain secret realm contained countless divine herbs, but it was also exceedingly dangerous. Feng Wuyo's spiritual power was low. Even if I killed her there, the people of Sherwu Mountain might not be able to trace it back to me. These were Chi Feiqi's calculations. Let me restore some spiritual power first. As a little snake, I must eat something from that pouch. Thus, Feng Wuyo and Shan Xiu set off. "Shan Xiu, hide first. Do not come out without my order." Shan Xiu asked, "Master, is that not too dangerous?" Feng Wuyo looked down into the ravine, her expression resolute. If one does not enter the tiger's den, how can one catch the tiger cub? As soon as she finished speaking, rustling sounds came from behind her. "It is here." At that moment, Chi Feiqi was hiding behind a bush. The little snake watched Feng Wuyo and wondered, why is she alone? Where's that fat bird? Feng Wuyo appeared busy, struggling to do something. The little snake thought, never mind. I cannot let such a good opportunity slip away. With that thought, Chi Feiqi lunged forward fiercely, intending to attack Feng Wuyo. She was still focused on picking the herb, but little did he know that Feng Wuyo had already noticed his actions. This was the moment. She suddenly cried out, "Ah!" The snake was startled by her scream. Immediately, she raised both hands and grabbed the snake by its fangs. Feng Wuyo said mischievously, "Little snake, can you grow larger and smaller? Did you come to save me because you saw me in danger?" The snake cursed inwardly. Save you my ass. I came to kill you, brat. Feng Wuyo and Chi Feiqi then tumbled down the ravine together. The snake shrank until it was only the size of a finger. Feng Wuyo cried anxiously, "Little snake, be careful." The snake fell into the ravine, smashing against rock after rock, nearly coughing up blood. "I'm going to faint." "No, die. How can anyone endure this?" Feng Wuyo gritted her teeth and lunged forward, trying to catch the snake. Her hand was almost close enough to touch the little snake. She caught Chi Feiqi in her hand, looking delighted. "Do not be afraid. I will protect you, little snake." Chi Feiqi was stunned by Feng Wuyo's actions. He said, Feng Wuyo, and the snake crashed face first onto the ground with a thud. She fainted, lying motionless on the ground with her eyes shut. Chi Feiqi slowly crawled out and repeatedly called, Feng Wuyo, wake up." He had returned to his true form and was reaching toward Feng Wuyo. The Phoenix Clan's pills truly lived up to their reputation. Just a few were enough to sustain his human form. Now was the perfect chance to take revenge. She was lying motionless on the ground, completely unable to resist. But Feng Wuyo was only pretending, waiting to see what he intended to do. His tail slowly moved toward her neck. She mumbled, "Silly snake, be careful." Suddenly, he froze. Unable to believe what was coming from Feng Wuyo's mouth, he called her name 3 times. Feng Wuyo, Feng Wuyo, Feng Wuyo. After watching Feng Wuyo for a long time, Chi Feiqi slowly reached toward her. "You're about to die, yet you still won't stop acting?" Feng Wuyo had her eyes closed, but she was actually closely observing his every move. "If you were truly kind, why did you ruin my cultivation just as I was about to ascend?" He gritted his teeth, determined to deal with this woman today. Slowly, he reached out and brushed Feng Wuyo's hair aside, revealing her innocent-looking face. "Snake women are famous for being seductive. If anyone dares touch my face, I'll fight them to the death." He thought to himself, half an act of kindness toward an enemy. "I'm healing you only so you can keep your corpse intact." Then he used his vital energy to restore Feng Wuyo's injuries. "While I'm at it, let me see just how wicked you are beneath that saintly face of yours. When we fell into the trap earlier, why didn't you activate your protective spell to defend yourself?" Feng Wuyo innocently replied, "My spiritual power is too weak. The protective spell could only shield me. It couldn't protect little snake." Startled by her words, he said, "It's just a pet snake. Why you care so much? What exactly are you after?" Feng Wuyo's gaze turned sorrowful as she thought of the snake. "Little snake is different from other spirit pets." Even more surprised, he pressed, "What did you say? How was it different?" Feng Wuyo explained, "It and I are the only 2 creatures on Sherwood Mountain who don't have wings. With it there, I'm not lonely." Hearing this, he finally understood. "That's right. Aren't you a phoenix? Where are your wings?" Feng Wuyo answered, "They're gone. My inner core, my wings, and all my memories are gone." Upon hearing that, he suddenly brought his face close to Feng Wuyo's, gently lifted her chin, and asked, "Then do you remember killing someone? Do you recognize who I am?" The young woman blankly shook her head. "Even if my life depended on it, I wouldn't recognize you." The young man stared at Feng Wuyo, unable to understand what was happening. After thinking for a moment, he suddenly realized that she had been so easily controlled by his spell. Her spiritual power truly was low, and she had been injured earlier as well. Was it worth getting hurt just to protect me? He shook his head and dismissed the matter. "Forget it. I'll spare your life for now." As soon as he finished speaking, he withdrew his vital energy, and Feng Wuyo fell unconscious again. Slowly, he lifted her up. He studied her face for a moment, then gently picked her up. Holding her in his arms, he saw Feng Wuyo squirming in her sleep, sleeping soundly. His eyes grew increasingly astonished. "I shouldn't have reached out to catch her. Why did I do that?" At that moment, Feng Wuyo suddenly mumbled, "You bastard! You dare provoke this 5th princess." He jolted in fright at her words. "Why you? What did you say?" Unconsciously, Feng Wuyo began wildly punching and kicking his face. "Get lost! Get lost! Get lost!" Her thunderous punches struck his face with several loud thuds, followed by cries of, help, Mom!" He turned back into a snake, Chi Feiqi in his original form, while still holding her. Once he transformed, Feng Wuyo fell flat on the ground. She suddenly opened her eyes and woke up, clutching her aching head. "Ouch, that hurts." "Hiss, where am I? Little snake. Where's little snake?" seeing the snake in front of her, his face dark with resentment. Feng Wuyo called out, "Little snake, are you all right?" She gathered him into her arms and kissed him several times. "Why are you here? It's wonderful that you're okay." Then she whispered to the snake while continuously stroking him. 2 years ago, I lost my inner core, my cultivation, and all my memories along with them. As she stroked the snake, his face turned red. "Let go of me. Only after we fell into the trap did I remember," Feng Wuyo continued. "This secret realm has a three-headed divine phoenix that enjoys using fake spirit heart grass to deceive people." She placed her hand on a stone slab before her. "This cave is concealed by an illusion spell. To get out from beneath that fake spirit heart grass, we need to strike it with magic. But with our current strength, only one of us can escape." Upon hearing that, Chi Feiqi calmly sighed. "You really know how to plan ahead." Suddenly, Feng Wuyo used spiritual energy from her hand to lift the snake, startling him. She said resolutely, "I'll send you out of the illusion. Hurry back and find my eldest brother to rescue me." Then she immediately gathered all her strength and pushed. Feng Wuyo shouted, "Go!" Chi Feiqi was sent flying forward by the force of her push. "What if I get out and can't come back?" After that effort, blood trickled from Feng Wuyo's mouth. She wiped away the blood with her hand, her eyes fixed intently on Little Snake. Faced with Feng Wuyo's unwavering faith in him, Chi Feiqi could hardly believe it. "Feng Wuyo, you trust me?" Shan Xiu flew over and chirped. "Master!" Feng Wuyo lay on the ground with her hands folded over her chest, her eyes tightly shut. Shan Xiu rushed forward and shouted, "Stop pretending! My fifth princess!" That silly snake has already disappeared. Only then did she slowly open her eyes and look at Shan Xiu. "I wasn't pretending. Using what little spiritual power I have to break through this illusion consumed a great deal of strength." Shan Xiu fluttered all around her, chirping nonstop. "Master, why did you have to do that? We could have left it trapped and escaped ourselves. Or, as the seventh princess of the Phoenix clan, you could have summoned the three-headed divine phoenix and killed it directly. Why didn't you do that? Its master wanted to kill you. Why did you spare it? For all we know, it may have already fled down the mountain and gone far away." Feng Wuyo slowly raised her head and gently stroked Shan Xiu. "It won't leave the mountain. Calm down, Shan Xiu." Shan Xiu looked unconvinced. "Are you sure?" Feng Wuyo's expression was full of confidence. "As long as it stayed for me this time, I'm certain it won't have the heart to kill me in the future. It will even help me uncover the truth about what happened that year." Shan Xiu stared blankly at Feng Wuyo. A bird really cannot understand a phoenix. Feng Wuyo slowly sat up, looked at Shan Xiu, and said, "But when I woke up earlier, I think I saw the silhouette of man." "Shan Xiu, did you see anyone come in?" Shan Xiu was so frightened that it hurriedly replied, "I didn't see anyone at all." The scene shifted to Shiwu Divine Palace. An announcement rang out from within. "Good news. The fifth princess has returned safely." Feng Wuyo had returned to the palace. Seeing her irritated expression, the palace maids whispered among themselves, "Why is the fifth princess so angry? Wasn't she fine just now?" The fourth prince saw that the fifth princess was injured and probably insisted that Little Snake had led her into a trap, so he wanted to drive it away. That's why the two siblings argued. The snake rested on a tree branch with his eyes closed, acting as though none of this concerned him. Feng Pianran dotes on his little sister so much. He'll definitely come comfort her soon. This truly has nothing to do with me. After waiting for a long time without seeing anyone come, Little Snake became puzzled. Why hasn't Feng Pianran come to comfort that girl yet? Then Chi Feiqi began making excuses for himself again. "If I don't go check on her, what if something happens?" The little snake leaped out of the bushes and snapped. "What a nuisance." Chi Feiqi slithered off to find Feng Wuyo. "I'm not worried about her. I just don't want to owe her a favor." After crawling for quite a while, he finally reached her bed. Poking his head out, he saw Feng Wuyo lying on it with her eyes closed. She looked exhausted and was breathing heavily. The little snake climbed onto her and used his tail to stroke her face. "Hiss, why is she so hot? Could she be sick?" He wondered whether he should call someone or wake her. At that moment, Feng Pianran arrived. He saw that the door was only slightly ajar. "I spoke too harshly to little Wuyo at noon. I really am awful." He slowly pushed the door open and peeked inside. The moment Feng Pianran saw the room, he nearly fainted on the spot. Feng Wuyo was lying in bed with Chi Feiqi the snake laid across her forehead as a cooling compress. This natural fever patch was rather unusual. Feng Pianran rushed forward and shook Feng Wuyo. That snake is cold-blooded and sinister. It can't protect you. If it can't even provide the basic warmth and companionship expected of a pet, what is the point of keeping it? Feng Wuyo angrily retorted. Have you ever raised a snake? How do you know it can't keep me company? Feng Pianran recalled his argument with Feng Wuyo. This snake really is different from the snake clan. After warming her with his body as a natural fever patch, Little Snake stroked Feng Wuyo. It really does help bring down her fever. Suddenly, Feng Wuyo moved and raised a hand to touch her forehead. The little snake hurriedly jumped aside. Oh no, she's about to wake up. I should get out of here. The next morning, a palace maid called from outside. Fifth princess, the fourth prince is here to see you. Feng Pianran entered, holding two small jade pendants in his hands. He quietly said to Feng Wuyo, I'm sorry. Fourth brother shouldn't have scolded you yesterday. These are my apology gifts. Feng Wuyo happily accepted the gifts with both hands. Looking at her fourth brother, she smiled and replied, 2 protective talismans? Fourth brother, does this mean you're allowing Little Snake to stay? Feng Pianran nodded. If you like it, then keep it. What's the harm? It seemed that Little Wuyo did not know the snake had cared for her the previous night. Feng Wuyo's eyes sparkled with joy as she beamed. I knew fourth brother treats me best. Feng Wuyo went inside. Behind her, Feng Pianran reminded her, go tell Little Snake that it has a protective talisman now too. His eyes showed some concern. I placed a master-servant binding in the protective talisman. If this snake ever attacks Wuyo, it will surely suffer a backlash. I only hope it behaves obediently and does not disappoint Wuyo. Feng Wuyo hung the protective talisman around Little Snake's neck. Little Snake, look, from now on, you and I are friends. We'll even wear matching protective talismans. Chi Feiqi was far from pleased. Friends? Who's friends with you? Why did she suddenly put this ridiculous thing on me? I am doomed. Feng Wuyo raised one finger and said, don't be shy. You saved me yesterday, and this is the reward you deserve. If you want, I can even help you cultivate and take human form. Feng Wuyo smiled and poked the snake's cheek several times. See, the benefits of being my friend are amazing, aren't they? The young snake merely sighed, looking unconcerned. It's just ordinary stuff. What is there to show off about? That night, when the moon rose overhead, Feng Wuyo called Shanxiu over. Shanxiu, take Little Snake's portrait to the Snake Clan and investigate his background. You must be careful. Shanxiu nodded in acceptance. As you command, master. Little Snake slept soundly on the tree, lying on top of his protective talisman. He felt rather pampered. Feng Wuyo is actually quite a good person. Several days passed. Shanxiu, how did the investigation go? The plump little bird had returned. Master, we found some information. Shanxiu immediately reported everything to Feng Wuyo. The Snake Clan ranks its members according to strength. Before Little Snake took human form, he was often bullied by other snakes and had no status at all. Finding his exact origins is like searching for a needle in the sea. But master, look, we brought this back for you. Feng Wuyo opened the scroll, and the image of a snake immediately appeared. It was a portrait of the Snake Clan's leader in his true form. Shanxiu explained, 2 years ago, when you lost your inner core, this Snake Clan leader also disappeared. We wonder whether these two events could be connected. Feng Wuyo fell into thought upon hearing this. Snakes are demonkind and have nothing to do with the Phoenix Clan. If there is any connection, it is said that dragons and snakes once shared a common ancestor. Snakes are fond of treacherous deeds and lazy in cultivation. For millions of years, none have ascended to godhood. Thus, the Snake Clan gradually fell into demonic ways and was driven into the deep mountains by the Dragon Clan. The two clans are like fire and water. Thinking it over, Feng Wuyo rolled up the portrait and said, the two clans have a long-standing feud. Yet the Phoenix Clan has always been close to the Dragon Clan's ancestors. Outsiders would naturally assume the Phoenix Clan sides with the Dragon Clan, and I am even betrothed to the Dragon Clan. We cannot say for certain whether I have any conflict with this Snake Clan leader. Shanxiu added, then we must investigate his whereabouts even more carefully. Feng Wuyo nodded. The Snake Clan is highly suspicious and rejects outsiders. You must be extremely careful. At that moment, the snake quietly slithered inside and poked his head out. What are Feng Wuyo and her fat bird whispering about me now? Seeing the portrait on the table, Chi Feiqi broke out in a cold sweat. Isn't that a portrait of my original form? Why does she have it? Then a maid came in and announced loudly, Fifth Princess, the Dragon Clan's third prince has arrived. The eldest prince requests your presence. At the mention of the Dragon Clan, Chi Feichi was terrified. The Dragon Clan would love nothing more than to erase every snake in the world. I should hide first. Meeting him could bring trouble. Upon hearing the announcement, Feng Wuyo immediately replied, I understand. Bring Little Snake along with me. The maid looked down at the snake, leaving him practically petrified. What did Master just say? Little Snake is right outside the door. Chi Feichi nearly wet himself in fear. The Dragon Clan is coming, and Feng Wuyo wants to bring me along? Is she crazy, or did I hear wrong? The Dragon Clan's third prince entered, waving his fan. It has been 2 years, fifth princess. Have you been well? This was the Dragon Clan's third prince, Han Qing. Feng Wuyo sat in her chair, stroking Little Snake in her hands. Thank you for your concern, Your Highness. With my fourth brother protecting me and Little Snake by my side, I have recovered well. The snake in Feng Wuyo's hands hissed several times. Third Prince Han Qing stared intently at him. Everyone then took their seats at the banquet table. Han Qing spoke first. The fifth princess and I have been betrothed for many years. We are practically family. Still bothered by the snake in Feng Wuyo's hands, he finally said bluntly, at a Phoenix Clan family banquet, how can the fifth princess bring such a lowly snake to the dining table? Chi Feichi was furious upon hearing himself mentioned. Is the Dragon Clan still this arrogant and shameless? Feng Wuyo smiled brightly and replied, I wanted to raise a dragon, but I couldn't catch one. She looked at Han Qing. Third Prince, do you have any ideas? Hearing Feng Wuyo's words, Chi Feichi looked at her in bewilderment. Why does Feng Wuyo seem to dislike the Dragon Clan? Isn't this her fiancé? Han Qing's eyes widened, and cold sweat formed on his brow. What does she want? Catch a dragon? Did her injuries from 2 years ago damage her brain? After thinking for a moment, Han Qing covered his mouth with his fan and laughed awkwardly. The fifth princess surely jests. The Dragon Clan has never served as slaves or pets for anyone. Feng Lingzhong spoke up. Little fifth spirit pets are all friends of the Phoenix Clan. They are not slaves. Han Qing immediately explained, that was not my intention. I only meant that the Phoenix Clan is indeed broad-minded. Another brother added, if the Phoenix Clan were not broad-minded, we would have been angered to death by certain people long ago. Feng Qi, the third brother, then said, on the way back, second brother, and I heard quite a few rumors that the Phoenix Clan relies on this marriage alliance to cling to the Dragon Clan. That is why they have prospered as they do today. In truth, the Dragon Clan has always looked down on the Phoenix Clan. Now that fifth sister is injured, His Highness will surely come to break off the engagement. At those words, Feng Lingzhong took a sip of tea, then looked at Han Qing in confusion. Third Prince, you came to break off the engagement. Han Qing shook his head. Of course not. Yet Feng Wuyo was thinking, I was actually hoping he would come to break it off. What a pity. As she spoke, she stroked the snake in her hand. Noticing Feng Wuyo's unusual reaction, Little Snake wondered why she seemed so disappointed to hear that the Dragon Clan was not breaking off the engagement. It was completely different from what he had learned before. Feng Wuyo must know that the Dragon Clan detests the Snake Clan. She deliberately attacked you at the final moment before your ascension, causing you to lose all your cultivation, all to curry favor with her Dragon Clan fiancé. If he was not here to break off the engagement, then he must be here to urge the wedding forward. Only then did Chi Feichi come back to his senses. Sensing that the atmosphere was tense, Han Qing raised a hand and said with a bright smile, after hearing what happened to the fifth princess, I began traveling across the 4 seas in search of medicinal ingredients. I then entered seclusion to refine a pill. I only emerged this morning and hurried here at once. If there has been any breach of etiquette, I hope the fifth princess will forgive me. Feng Wuyo stared at him blankly. Third Prince, you are most thoughtful. But what kind of pill requires 2 years of refinement? Han Qing immediately answered, a marrow-cleansing pill. One of her brothers was astonished and explained, I have heard that this pill can revive the dead and repair one's inner core, but it has only ever appeared in ancient records. Third Prince actually refined one? That is truly extraordinary. Second brother Feng Kong said, something that has only ever appeared in ancient records. How does third Prince know he succeeded in refining it? Han Qing immediately explained, I was worried about the fifth princess's health. After refining the pill, I hurried here to share the good news. How about I return and bring the pill here so everyone can examine it together? Feng Wuyo brightened at once. Sorry to trouble you. Hurry and bring it here." Feng Lingzhong looked at Feng Wuyo and said, "Wuyo, eldest brother still supports your original decision." At that, everyone turned toward him in confusion. "What decision?" Feng Lingzhong closed his eyes and continued. 2 years ago, Wuyo wanted to find Han Qing and break off the engagement. I could not stop her. Little Snake was shocked at the words, "break off the engagement." Break off the engagement? Chi Feiqi was utterly stunned. It seemed Feng Wuyo was not on good terms with the Dragon Clan, contrary to the rumors. Then why would Feng Wuyo rather end up half dead than kill me? Feng Wuyo was also stunned by Feng Lingzhong's words. I do not remember much about what happened before. The current me and Prince Han Qing are not close. Second brother Feng Kong spoke suspiciously. If he truly refined such a miraculous pill and is acting this way, he clearly values you. Why did he not bring the pill with him? He is obviously testing our attitude. Since fifth sister is in such a hurry, she absolutely cannot marry this man. Why not choose another marriage candidate for fifth sister? I think the Peacock clan's little prince cares quite a bit about her. Another brother objected. Actually, I think Prince Han Qing is not bad either. The brothers, who had been speaking calmly just moments ago, immediately began arguing. The old lord's grandson is clearly better than Han Qing, but he has become a monk. Third brother refuses romance. As for me, I insist on voting for the Peacock clan's little prince. Childhood sweethearts are wonderful. Their argument gave Feng Lingzhong a terrible headache. He sat still with his eyes closed as everyone reached an impasse. With no other choice, the brothers began fighting fiercely. Meanwhile, Feng Wuyo was happily playing with Little Snake. Items flew out from the intense brawl, and Feng Wuyo rushed forward to snatch them up and feed them to the Little Snake. This is good. It can strengthen your tendons and bones and help you take human form sooner. Feng Wuyo became increasingly enthusiastic, stuffing food into Little Snake's mouth. Everything my brothers carry is good stuff. Eat more and increase your spiritual power. Chi Feiqi was force-fed until he felt ready to burst. As he ate and burped, he thought in alarm, I never expected Feng Wuyo to be such an opportunist. The scene shifted to the Dragon Palace. After returning, Han Qing sat in a chair and sighed. Beside him was Bulu of the Snake Clan. Seeing him sigh, she walked over and asked, "Third prince, did you see the fifth princess?" Han Qing slowly opened his eyes. "I did, but she's not like she used to be. She is frail and sickly, and her brothers spoil her beyond all reason. She even wants to keep." Han Qing suddenly stopped speaking. Bulu asked curiously, "Keep what?" Han Qing shook his head. "Nothing." Bulu said, "The fifth princess is of noble status. Even if she is lawless, her brothers will indulge her. Once she becomes your highness's wife, your highness can discipline her however you wish." Hearing this, Han Qing turned toward her intimately. "If marrying her did not allow me to gain the Phoenix clan's support and smoothly ascend to the position of heir, I would have broken off this engagement long ago. For now, you will just have to endure the grievance of pretending to be a maid by my side." So this woman was Han Qing's lover. No wonder her name was Bulu. Bulu nestled into Han Qing's arms and said coquettishly, "This servant only hopes that your highness will not forget me after you marry." Han Qing sweetly coaxed her, "I will not. Feng Wuyo is only my wife in name. You are the woman I truly love." The scene returned to the other side. Chi Feiqi was sitting and absorbing the spiritual energy from the pile of pills Feng Wuyo had force-fed him. "I ate too many nourishing pills during the day. I need to refine them a little." As he concentrated, he suddenly heard a sound outside the door. Chi Feiqi immediately looked over and shouted, "Who is it?" A man in black with his face covered appeared. "It's me. As for who I am, you do not need to know." Chi Feiqi crawled over to the man in black and asked, "Why have you come here?" "If I had not come, I would not have known that you were willingly being kept as a pet by your enemy. Do not forget who caused you to fail your ascension, damaging your cultivation so severely that even your clansmen could not recognize you." Chi Feiqi said to the man in black, "On my way to Shiwu Mountain, I was picked up by Lingshu Daoist of Lady Palace. He brought me here to be Feng Wuyo's pet." The man in black looked doubtful. "You are her pet, staying by her side every day. Why have you not acted sooner and settled everything quickly?" Chief Feichi stammered, unable to answer. The truth is, I still do not understand what happened back then. How could you expect me to strike at Feng Wuyo? The man in black was angered by Chief Feichi's hesitation. I heard Feng Wuyo's fiancé has already come to urge the marriage forward. If you keep delaying, it will be even harder to act once she marries into the Dragon Clan. Chief Feichi lowered his head uneasily. I understand. The man in black took out a medicine vial. This poison is colorless and tasteless. You only need to put a single drop in a Feng Wuyo's food to take her life. He said firmly, if you do not find an opportunity to act within 3 days, then for your safety, I will come take you away from Shiwu Mountain. Chief Feichi had no choice but to nod in agreement. Whether I can actually do this is another matter. I should agree first. As for whether I will act, I will decide after I uncover the truth. Chief Feichi looked at the man in black and asked, was Feng Wuyo from 2 years ago stronger than me? Hearing this, the man in black laughed. At the time, she only had 800 years of cultivation, slightly weaker than you were then. Then how could she possibly have killed me? The man in black continued. When you resisted the heavenly tribulation, your vital essence was already badly damaged. You were only one final step away from ascending and transforming into a dragon. Feng Wuyo suddenly rushed in and struck you with one palm, sending you plummeting from 10,000 miles in the sky. The dragon bones you had just formed were shattered by that fall. Chief Feichi responded, if that is true, then who injured Feng Wuyo afterward? The man in black sneered. After I saved you, I did not see her again. Everyone outside says that Feng Wuyo was arrogant and overbearing, with too many enemies, so someone took the opportunity to ambush her. Chief Feichi could hardly believe what he heard about Feng Wuyo. Arrogant? Overbearing? And she had many enemies? Feng Wuyo is someone even I, a demon of a different race, like. She even wants to keep me as a pet. The man in black was surprised by Chief Feichi's words. Why are you asking these things? Has the Phoenix clan discovered something? Chief Feichi shook his head. No, I was only asking casually. The man in black bent down and touched Little Snake's head. For demons like us, cultivation is more important than anything else. Once you ascend again, killing her will be as easy as turning over your hand. But you were so determined to take revenge quickly that you could not even wait until you cultivated back into human form. I could only risk everything alongside you. Chief Feichi was somewhat worried. It is getting late. Go back and wait for my news. The man in black nodded. Then I will be leaving. Watching his figure leave, Chief Feichi thought, it seems I need to investigate what happened that year from a different angle. Chief Feichi slithered off to find Feng Wuyo. Starting today, I must carefully observe Feng Wuyo's every move. I refuse to believe I cannot uncover the truth. Just as he set off to find her, he saw Feng Wuyo fiercely fighting the man in black from earlier. Loud thuds shattered the silence of the night. Feng Wuyo's expression was exceedingly serious. I have to deal with this man in black. Why did he come here in the middle of the night? Under Feng Wuyo's relentless attacks, the man in black could barely defend himself. She was no pushover. Seeing the fierce situation, Chief Feichi panicked and rushed out to stop them. Good heavens, why are you two fighting so fiercely? He stared in shock at the fight. Seeing that he could not end this quickly, the man in black turned and fled. Feng Wuyo refused to let him go and quickly gave chase. The truth has not been uncovered yet. If that person's identity is exposed, mine will be exposed too. I have to find a way to stop Feng Wuyo. Chief Feichi rushed forward to stop her, but in the blink of an eye, both of them had vanished. Where did they go? The sounds of fighting clearly came from here. Then a loud voice called from behind him. Chief Feichi, save me. Looking back, he saw the man in black clutching one injured arm. He had apparently been hurt during the fight with Feng Wuyo. Seeing him appear, Chief Feichi immediately became wary. You had clearly left already. How did she discover you? What did you do? Tell me now. The man explained, I was worried that Feng Wuyo was only pretending to have lost her memories in order to gain your trust, planning to harm you again. So after leaving you, I secretly went to her room. At that moment, Feng Wuyo had noticed the black-clad man's presence. Who is out there? Speak. Hearing a sound from behind him, Chief Feichi turned around. She's coming. Leave first. Do not come to Shiwu Mountain again unless it is important. The man nodded. All right, be careful. Chief Feichi sighed helplessly. It looks like I have to confront Feng Wuyo directly. What a pain. Thus, Chief Feichi decided to take the black-clad man's place. He put on an identical black outfit and stood with his back to Feng Wuyo. She pressed her sword to Chief Feichi's neck and said, How dare you break in my Sherwu mountain in the middle of the night? She threatened him fiercely. Are you too afraid to show your true face to others? The young man before her remained completely still, making Feng Wuyo feel that something was wrong. Why is he not moving or saying anything? Seeing no other option, Feng Wuyo decided to pull off his clothes and see who he was. She grabbed his black robe and yanked it back. She had expected a tall, dark, burly man in black, but instead revealed an exceptionally handsome young man. Feng Wuyo was startled. Something did not seem right. He was much taller than a man from before, his body was stiff, and his gaze was dull. Was he under a paralysis spell? Swiftly, Feng Wuyo sealed the stranger's acupoints, ensuring that he had no chance to resist. After thinking for a moment, she released his acupoints and interrogated him. Who are you? Why are you here? The young man looked intently at Feng Wuyo and said, I am a junior immortal officer serving under Immortal Xuanji of the Heavenly Crane Grotto Heaven. While passing through this area, I was badly injured by a bandit. He also used a paralysis spell to bind me here. Fortunately, the fairy rescued me. Otherwise, the consequences would have been unimaginable. Feng Wuyo was somewhat puzzled by his introduction. She had heard that the Crane clan made friends throughout the world. Whether immortals or demons, even the Snake clan had connections with them. If she could learn some information from him, would that not be better than blindly investigating on her own? Seeing Feng Wuyo standing silently, the young man called out several times, Fairy? Fairy! Feng Wuyo finally came back to herself. I'm terribly sorry. I nearly killed you with one strike just now. These pills are effective for internal injuries. Please accept them as my apology. As she spoke, Feng Wuyo handed him an enormous bag of pills. She truly was exceedingly generous. Smiling, he clasped his hands before his chest and said, Thank you, Fairy, for the pills. You have shown me great kindness. Would Fairy be willing to leave me a token? When I return, I will prepare a gift and come to thank you properly. Feng Wuyo looked at the sword in her hand and thought, without my inner core, I can only rely on magical artifacts even to protect myself. I left in too much of a hurry tonight and brought my heaviest sword. Let this junior immortal officer take it as a token of my favor. Feng Wuyo tossed the sword toward him. Here, take this. This sword is really heavy. Holding the sword, he said softly, This sword is like autumn frost, its radiance flowing like water. It is surely no ordinary object. Yet Fairy gave it to me so casually. Feng Wuyo replied, You were injured within Sherwu Mountains territory. Carrying this sword will ensure that you leave safely. You can return it later. Fairy is truly righteous. If there is ever anything I can do to help you, please do not hesitate to ask. Feng Wuyo scratched her head and giggled. To tell the truth, there is something I would like your help with. Please tell me. Resting her chin on her hand, Feng Wuyo pondered. A good friend of mine lost something very important a few years ago and has never found it. Coincidentally, when she lost that item, someone else also suddenly disappeared. So does your friend suspect that person of stealing her belongings? Feng Wuyo said, I'm not sure either, but my friend says she has a strong feeling that only by finding this person can she uncover the truth. Who does your friend wish to find? Feng Wuyo leaned close and whispered into his ear, Chi Feiqi, the leader of the Snake clan. The young man froze on the spot. The person in question had just heard it himself. Chi Feiqi returned to his human form, appearing as an exceptionally handsome young man. He pointed at himself in confusion. Fairy wants me to find Chi Feiqi. Seeing the handsome man, Feng Wuyo's eyes sparkled brightly. Do not feel troubled. You only need to keep an eye out for news of him while you are beside Immortal Xuanji. If nothing comes of it, I will not force you. Chi Feiqi was so frightened by Feng Wuyo's words that he began sweating profusely. He turned away and nodded. All right. Chi Feiqi slowly walked away. Behind him, Feng Wuyo waved with all her might. See you again, little immortal officer. Do not forget our agreement. When you come to visit, I will show you my pet snake. The young man left without saying a word. What could he possibly say? The scene shifted to Nine Doubts Mountain of the Snake clan, where three snakes were whispering together in a tree. Is there something you want to find out about, Bulu? A green snake beside them turned to the white snake and said, We do not know much about her either. Her cultivation is quite high, and she has always disdained speaking with low-ranking clansmen like us. After the leader's failed ascension, she vanished without a trace. Everyone in the clan thought she had died that day. The elders divided up the territory, each claiming their own faction. We do not dare leave this swamp. Why not ask around elsewhere? I once built a private treasury in the mountains to store my treasures, and entrusted it to Elder Moonshade, whom I trusted most. If I can find him, he will surely be able to answer my questions. Chief Feichi held his sword and made his way forward through the grass. As he walked, concern suddenly flickered in Chief Feichi's eyes. He hesitated and said, "But the treasure vault is filled with traps. With my current cultivation, I fear I may not return if I go there." He stopped before a deep, pitch-black cavern. He tightened his grip on his sword, his heart filled with anxiety. "I cannot worry about that now." Chief Feichi charged inside and shattered a boulder within the cave. He pressed onward. Vines wrapped around Chief Feichi's sword, and he continued fighting the hateful crocodile. After a fierce battle, Chief Feichi collapsed onto the ground, panting heavily. Suddenly, he shouted, "Elder Moonshade, your leader has returned. Why have you not come out to welcome me?" At that moment, an old man's voice answered from behind him. "Who dares impersonate the leader of our snake clan?" The old man angrily struck at Chief Feichi with a powerful palm attack. Chief Feichi raised his sword to block it. "Elder Moonshade, appearances can be faked, but memories cannot. No one but me knows that you hide your spouse's foxtail beneath your pillow." Hearing Chief Feichi's words, the old man froze, drenched in cold sweat. "How do you know that? Could you truly be Chief Feichi?" Chief Feichi pointed at himself and snorted. "Look at how filthy I am. This is not the place to talk. Take me inside. I have questions for you." The old man stared at the young man in shock. Who was he? Still, he led him inside. The young man then began explaining everything to him. After a long explanation, the old man finally understood. Elder Moonshade stroked his beard and questioned Chief Feichi. "You risked coming here just to ask about Miss Bulu?" Chief Feichi took the opportunity to tend his wounds. "Bulu saved me amid the lightning tribulation formation during my ascension." Elder Moonshade was greatly surprised upon hearing this. "It was her." Chief Feichi asked, "Why are you so surprised? Did Bulu have some conflict with me before?" Elder Moonshade raised a finger and explained, "At first, Bulu liked you, but you were obsessed with cultivation and never gave any woman a second glance. Over time, she was hurt and swore that she would make you regret it." After putting on his clothes, Chief Feichi closed his eyes and sighed. "If she was hurt, why would she still save me?" The old man made a lovey-dovey gesture. "Love is something you have never experienced. When love runs deep, love becomes hate, and hate becomes love." The young man nearly exploded with anger at Elder Moonshade's words. "Stop saying things that make people grind their teeth in anger." The old man continued explaining, "However, even if a woman loves you, you cannot trust her words completely." Chief Feichi suddenly lowered his gaze and asked Elder Moonshade, "Do you know the fifth princess of the Phoenix clan?" The old man calmly stroked his beard. "I have heard of her. The Phoenix clan is an upright and honorable divine clan. Ha ha. But unfortunately, they entered into a marriage alliance with the Dragon clan. The fifth princess probably is not willing either, is she?" Chief Feichi looked at him in surprise. "How do you know she is unwilling? You seem awfully familiar with the matter." The old man answered confidently, "The marriage agreement between the Dragon clan and the Phoenix clan was made many years ago. The day for the two to marry should have arrived long ago, yet the Phoenix clan keeps delaying it. They claim they cannot bear to part with their younger sister. Tell me, could the Phoenix clan truly be willing?" The young man was quite surprised by Elder Moonshade's answer. Chief Feichi wiped his glasses as if trying to change the subject, then looked away. "Why have I never heard of these matters before?" Elder Moonshade pointed at him in astonishment. "You were wholly devoted to cultivation before and never asked about women. Now that your cultivation has been destroyed, you are suddenly asking about women. That is rather strange." The young man froze after being found out. Elder Moonshade continued, "You do not like her, do you?" Hit right where it hurt, Chief Feichi panicked, but tried to look calm. Raising his hand toward Elder Moonshade, he changed the subject. "Where is the blood jade bracelet?" The old man was greatly surprised. "What do you want a blood jade bracelet for? Do not tell me you intend to use it as a return gift for the woman who gave you that treasured sword." Every word the old man said struck home, making the young man jump in alarm. "Once I recover my cultivation, the first thing I will do is give that damned old man a beating." The scene shifted to Feng Wuyo of the Phoenix clan. Just after she woke up, the maid entered and said, "Fifth princess, His Highness Han Qing has returned with the pills. He said spiritual medicine is difficult to obtain, so he's giving you half a pill first for you to try. Feng Wuyo sat up and rubbed her eyes. He came to my door yesterday without bringing the medicine. Now he has gone back for it, yet he is only giving me half a pill. He is not sincere. I fear he has some scheme against our Phoenix clan. The maid asked, "Fifth Princess, how do you know?" Feng Wuyo answered decisively, as if she knew him well. "He has already made demands of my brothers." The maid replied with cold sweat trickling down her back. His Highness Han Qing said he wants the Phoenix clan's borderlands adjacent to the Dragon clan. Upon hearing this, Feng Wuyo became furious. She slammed both hands onto the bed and shouted, "He is openly demanding a portion of our Phoenix clan's territory. He is not even pretending anymore, is he?" Suddenly, the plump bird flew back from afar to report, "Master, this is bad. Little Snake is gone." Feng Wuyo was startled. "What?" She immediately got out of bed and changed clothes in great haste. Feng Wuyo rushed toward the door. Before leaving, she turned and instructed her maid, "Little Chui, inform my eldest brother that my little snake is missing. I will search the mountains." Little Chui asked, "What about the third prince of the Dragon clan?" Feng Wuyo told her, "Delay him. If he cannot wait for me, he can leave on his own." On the way, the plump bird said, "Master, Little Snake's identity is unclear. Could it have deliberately disappeared to lure you out, then set a trap for you?" Feng Wuyo firmly replied, "It is still on Sherwa Mountain. It cannot have gone anywhere else." The plump bird asked again, "My fourth brother placed a master-servant pact on the protective talismans belonging to Little Snake and me. I can trace the location of Little Snake's protective talisman." With that, Feng Wuyo pushed the protective talisman forward to investigate. At that moment, Chi Feiqi was hiding within a dense thicket. Little Snake muttered to himself, "Good thing I hid the protective talisman in the mountains before leaving last night." The moment he finished speaking, Feng Wuyo found him. Her voice nearly scared Chi Feiqi to death. "Little Snake, what are you doing?" Turning around, he saw Feng Wuyo's sharp gaze and the annoying, chatterbox plump bird beside her. The young man was terrified, his face turning pale. "I did not do anything." Feng Wuyo continued questioning him. "What is this?" Little Snake hissed a few times, pretending to be innocent and not understand what she meant. Chi Feiqi immediately performed a series of strange actions. At one moment, he held a jade pendant up to his neck. The next, he burrowed into a hole and dug around. Then he brought out a pouch of pearls and precious jade. Seeing the snake's actions, Feng Wuyo pointed at the treasures and asked, "You mean these are treasures you dug up all night?" Then Feng Wuyo hugged the snake to her chest, beaming with delight. "Little Snake, wow, you are amazing." Chi Feiqi recalled Elder Moonshade's words. The blood jade bracelet was forged from ancient Nuwa stone. Used for good, it can channel the sun and moon and nurture all living things. Used for evil, it can devour the sun and moon and destroy life. Keep the blood jade bracelet for yourself and use the remaining items as a return gift. Feng Wuyo looked at Little Snake and thought, Little Snake's protective talisman has never left the Phoenix clan's territory. Although these things are numerous, none of them are particularly rare. It seems they truly are the fruits of his digging all night. Little Snake wore the blood jade bracelet on his head, completely ignoring Elder Moonshade's advice. Seeing the bracelet on Chi Feiqi's head, Feng Wuyo bent down and asked curiously, "What is this bracelet?" She then put the bracelet on her wrist. There is only one such bracelet in the world. She will not see through it, will she? Chi Feiqi crawled over and coiled himself around Feng Wuyo's arm, pretending to be obedient. Receiving the bracelet from Little Snake, Feng Wuyo looked at him tenderly. "Thank you for giving it to me, Little Snake. It is very beautiful." Just as they were enjoying the moment, a hand suddenly shot out and seized Chi Feiqi by the neck, making Little Snake gape and stick out his long tongue. Han Qing appeared with a completely calm expression. He said to Feng Wuyo, "Fifth Princess, you rejected the pills I gave you, yet you like the worthless trash that this lowly beast dug out of the mountains?" Chi Feiqi struggled desperately as the bastard choked him. Feng Wuyo was utterly shocked. Furious at Han Qing's actions, she shouted, "Little Snake is not some lowly beast. He is my friend. Release him now. Han Qing's expression did not change. Looking at Chi Feiqi, he said calmly, "A lowly snake like this does not deserve to live." As he spoke, he tightened his grip, leaving Chi Feiqi unable to breathe, his mouth hanging open. "Is this how I die at this man's hands?" Seeing the urgent situation, Feng Wuyo rushed forward, swung her hand, and shouted, "Han Qing." But just as her hand came down, another hand darted out and caught it. Han Qing had reacted to her attack. He brought his irritating face close to Feng Wuyo's and said, "I have always cherished jade and spared flowers. I do not strike women. If the fifth princess is willing to beg me, perhaps I may soften my heart and spare Chi Feiqi." Taking advantage of Han Qing's distraction, Little Snake lunged forward, clamped down on his hand, and bit him hard. The crunch was so loud it could have been heard from miles away. Han Qing was caught completely off guard by Little Snake's action. He flung his hand, sending Chi Feiqi flying into the bushes. Furious, Han Qing hooted, "You beast! How dare you bite me?" Seeing Little Snake thrown away, Feng Wuyo cried out in alarm, "Be careful, Little Snake!" Just as he was about to hit the ground, a hand suddenly appeared and caught Chi Feiqi. Feng Wuyo's 4 brothers had arrived. Eldest brother looked toward Feng Wuyo and called out, "Wuyo, are you all right?" Seeing the wound on Han Qing's hand, eldest brother gritted his teeth in anger. "Little Snake, you naughty creature! You dared injure a distinguished guest of our Phoenix clan." Feng Wuyo immediately rushed forward and said to fourth brother, "Do not falsely accuse Little Snake." Han Qing attacked first. Seeing that the situation was turning bad, the plump bird immediately ran away. "This is too much trouble. I'm out of here." Han Qing suddenly spoke up. "It is true that I reached out to pet the fifth princess's beloved snake first. Seeing how much the fifth princess likes it, I wanted to get to know it as well. I did not expect it to give me such a vicious bite, nearly killing me on the spot." Han Qing's insinuating words made Feng Wuyo furious. She glared at him. You are unbelievable." Seeing Feng Wuyo's anger, Han Qing smiled brightly. "Fifth princess, there is no need to worry. It is only a minor injury." Feng Wuyo was furious but could do nothing to that scheming, hateful man. Eldest brother looked at Feng Wuyo and said, "This truly was Little Snake's fault. Wuyo, apologize quickly." Hearing this, Feng Wuyo looked up at eldest brother anxiously, stammering and unable to say anything. Seeing the situation, Little Snake thought, "They are all the same. This time I am finished." Eldest brother then walked over and lifted Chi Feiqi up. "Little Snake, you were disrespectful and offended a distinguished guest of the Phoenix clan. Imprison him in the great jail and deal with him according to the rules." Eldest brother immediately restrained Chi Feiqi, making Little Snake extremely uncomfortable. Han Qing thought to himself, "If I still had my former cultivation, even if I had to risk my life, I would smash this evil dragon's head. It seems I need to raise my cultivation as quickly as possible." Seeing eldest brother restrain Chi Feiqi, Feng Wuyo panicked and rushed forward, crying, "Eldest brother!" Second brother pulled Feng Wuyo back, stopping her from intervening. Being held back made Feng Wuyo even more anxious. Second brother said to Feng Wuyo, "Wuyo, calm down. Come with us first." Her brothers pulled Feng Wuyo away. She kept looking back, where Chi Feiqi was still restrained while eldest brother spoke with Han Qing. As Feng Wuyo was dragged away, she angrily shouted, "Second brother, Han Qing definitely has bad intentions." She desperately recounted the things Han Qing had done. The first thing he said was that he wanted the Phoenix clan's borderlands. He acts one way in public and another way behind our backs. He is truly detestable. As she spoke, Feng Wuyo raised her fist and shook the bracelet on her wrist. Third brother rushed over, startled when he saw the bracelet on Feng Wuyo's wrist. He asked, "Wuyo, where did you get this bracelet?" The scene shifted to several days later. An announcement rang out. "Summon Little Snake into the hall." Chi Feiqi slowly crawled into the hall as members of the Phoenix clan whispered behind him. He can see daylight again after being in the dungeon. "What incredible luck. I heard it is because Little Snake gave the fifth princess a treasure." The fifth princess pleaded with His Highness the eldest prince for days before he agreed to spare him. Hearing mention of the treasure, Chi Feiqi wondered, have Feng Wuyo's brothers recognized the blood jade bracelet? Do they know that this item can bring both fortune and disaster? Seeing Little Snake, Feng Wuyo immediately rushed forward and called joyfully, "Little Snake, are you all right?" Eldest brother, standing above, said, "Little Snake, you provoked the Dragon clan and damaged the harmony between the Dragon and Phoenix clans. By rights, I should execute you. But in consideration of your gift of the ancient supreme treasure, the Blood Jade Bracelet, the Phoenix clan may spare your life. Since you have a talent for digging up treasures, accompany Fifth Sister into the Sherwu Mountain secret realm. Help her kill monsters, seize treasures, and raise her cultivation. However, everything you obtain in the secret realm must be handed over to her." Feng Wuyo rushed over and teased Little Snake. "Little Snake, rest assured, I will protect you, so do not worry." Kifenki nodded rapidly. "My life depends on it. I need to seize this chance before they choke me again." Seeing Little Snake nod so eagerly, Feng Wuyo crouched down and whispered, "Little Snake, we will take that as your agreement then." She extended her hand toward Chi Feichi. Little Snake immediately slithered over and coiled around Feng Wuyo's arm, appearing exceptionally obedient. She looked at him tenderly. "Little Snake, you are so good. No, I mean so obedient." Then Feng Wuyo turned and left. Eldest brother watched her figure gradually disappear through the doorway. His expression was rather unhappy. A snake with such low cultivation was able to offer a supreme treasure like the Blood Jade Bracelet. Its identity is certainly not simple. For Fifth Sister's safety, the Phoenix clan should have eliminated it. Yet this little snake was a gift from you, so there must be a reason for it. I hope you will clear up my doubts. The immortal elder stroked his beard and said, "Although it is of a different race, it is a fortunate bond for the fifth princess." Hearing the immortal's words, eldest brother seemed to understand somewhat. "Wuyo, I only hope it is as Taoist Ethereal Void said, that she has a fated opportunity through it." Feng Wuyo was sleeping on her bed again, with Little Snake beside her. Both were sound asleep. Then came a clicking sound from outside the door, as though someone were opening it and entering. No, it was Chi Feichi slipping out. Little Snake poked his head outside and looked around to see whether anyone was there. Little Snake spotted a letter on the ground. Chi Feichi guessed, this must be a letter from Bulu. Little Snake picked up the letter in his mouth and slithered out into the open. Chi Feichi opened the letter and read, "We are one and the same. If you refuse to act, I will help you obtain information about Bulu." Chi Feichi flew into a rage. "Stay out of my business." Just as he was fuming, he suddenly heard footsteps. Someone seemed to be approaching. In a panic, Chi Feichi immediately destroyed the letter. It was Feng Wuyo, carrying a lantern as she searched for Little Snake. When she found Chi Feichi there, Feng Wuyo looked over in puzzlement and asked, "Little Snake, what are you doing here?" Chi Feichi put on an innocent expression and gave a few hissing sounds. Feng Wuyo guessed that Little Snake was digging for treasure. "You're digging for treasures again? There can't possibly be that many treasures to dig up in Sherwu Mountain." Understanding dawned on her. She rubbed Little Snake's head and smiled. "Take your time digging. I'm too sleepy. Tomorrow morning, I'll see what treasures you found and reward you." Chi Feichi was terrified. He did not want to dig anything. Then she turned and walked away, yawning several times. "I'm so sleepy. Keep it up, Little Snake. I'm going to bed first." Feng Wuyo looked utterly innocent. But in truth, she had noticed everything, sending messages to someone else and destroying the evidence. What exactly was he planning? Feng Wuyo headed toward her room as Fatbird came in to report. "Master, did you find proof that Little Snake has betrayed you?" Feng Wuyo's eyes were thoughtful as she considered it. Then she said, "He destroyed the letter. I wasn't able to read it, but the evidence is enough for us to be basically certain." Feng Wuyo stated decisively, "There is someone else behind Little Snake. I should have realized it sooner. If this Blood Jade Bracelet had been in Sherwu Mountain, my brothers would have discovered it long ago. How could Little Snake possibly have dug it up?" Fatbird considered Feng Wuyo's words. It really was suspicious. "Master, tomorrow morning you'll have to enter the secret realm with Little Snake. You must be careful and stay on guard." Feng Wuyo took out a wooden box. Inside, she placed a real Blood Jade bracelet and a fake one. Looking at Fatbird, Feng Wuyo said, It seems I won't have the good fortune to use this Blood Jade bracelet for the time being." The next morning, eldest brother and Feng Wuyo arrived at the rear mountain. Chi Feichi followed them as well. "Wuyo, Every cultivation method has its own opportunity. Eldest brother looked at Feng Wuyo with concern. This time, you can only rely on yourself. She lowered her head, her eyes shimmering as though she were pondering something. When necessary, try circulating the blood jade bracelet's power. See whether it can replace your inner core and circulate spiritual energy through your sea of qi. Feng Wuyo nodded. Yes. Then she walked ahead. Let's go. At that moment, Chi Feiqi was curled up on the grass. When he saw Feng Wuyo heading inside, Chi Feiqi rose and slithered closely after her. Fragrant flowers bloomed all around them, while butterflies fluttered overhead. Chi Feiqi entered with Feng Wuyo, staring blankly at the scene before him. Suddenly, Feng Wuyo said, "You and I will split up and act separately." Little Snake looked at her in confusion, unable to understand what she intended to do. Suddenly, Little Snake pulled out a pouch filled with sparkling gemstones. Chi Feiqi hissed several times. "Look, I dug up so many treasures last night." He had expected Feng Wuyo to be delighted at the sight of all those treasures. But contrary to his expectations, her face remained utterly cold. "These are the treasures you dug up last night." Little Snake was heartbroken. He thought resentfully, "Those were all things I painstakingly pried loose. When did I dig them up?" Feng Wuyo turned away, looking completely unconcerned. "They're only some low-grade restorative pills. You can keep them for yourself." Seeing her indifferent attitude, Little Snake nearly turned to stone. What was wrong with her? Wasn't she supposed to hug him, kiss him, lift him up, and praise him for being amazing? Chi Feiqi thought to himself, women truly are fickle. Isn't it just splitting up to act separately? Who can't survive without whom? Thus, the two of them each headed off in opposite directions. The sulking snake slithered away. "Even if I die, I won't go with you." After moving a short distance, Little Snake glanced back to see where she was going. Seeing that Feng Wuyo had not even looked back, Chi Feiqi turned around. "I'm absolutely not worried about her. I'm only doing this because I promised her eldest brother. Even as a snake, I must keep my word." Feng Wuyo had now entered the cultivation area of the secret realm, a place called Dream Valley. Behind her, Chi Feiqi hid behind a large rock. Hiding in the shadows means I don't have to listen to Feng Wuyo mock me anymore, and I can still fulfill my promise to her eldest brother. I really am a genius. Hearing rustling behind her, Feng Wuyo turned around and called out, "Who is it?" Little Snake was startled and hid behind a rock, nearly getting caught. Afterward, he cautiously poked his head out, only to jump in fright when he could not find Feng Wuyo anywhere. What? Where did she go? How did she disappear so quickly? As the snake looked around in bewilderment, Feng Wuyo was actually hiding behind another rock, stealthily following him in return. Little Snake definitely has a problem. Suddenly, a loud rumble startled both Chi Feiqi and Feng Wuyo, and they looked toward the source of the sound. A notification sounded. If two companions are more than 10 meters apart, they will receive a random punishment. Current distance, 10.1 meters. Before the announcement had even ended, heavenly lightning struck down, blasting Little Snake until he looked like a scorched skeleton. "It's over. Help!" Feng Wuyo sniffed the air. "Why does it smell like snake meat?" "It smells like delicious roasted meat." Chi Feiqi had been struck until his whole body was charred black, and he lay in a heap on the ground. Seeing that the lightning had finished striking the snake, Feng Wuyo cried out in alarm. "Since it struck him, it can't strike me too, right?" Chi Feiqi was so angry that he thrashed his tail against the ground, furious enough to bang his head against the earth. Then another heavenly cloud unleashed a torrential downpour directly over Feng Wuyo, leaving her rooted to the spot. Feng Wuyo was furious. When both people stop moving and their distance exceeds 10 meters, they will also be punished. If one moves while the other remains still, the one who remains still will be punished. Hearing these absurd rules, Feng Wuyo was dumbfounded. What kind of ridiculous rule is that? Little Snake hissed mockingly at Feng Wuyo. She was furious. "Just you wait. You'll pay for this." Then she sprinted in the opposite direction. The distance between them once again exceeded 10 meters, and Little Snake was struck by lightning and roasted like grilled snake. When the snake ran away again, another downpour drenched Feng Wuyo. One of them was soaked through, while the other had been struck by lightning until he was practically roasted snake. Unable to endure it any longer, they stood close together. We can't waste any more time. The two of them reached an agreement and decided on a truce. After wandering around for half the day, night had fallen. It's getting dark. We need to find somewhere to stay. Feng Wuyo's eyes were worried. It's this quiet during the day. At night, there will definitely be a fierce battle. Little Snake hissed in agreement. After being struck by lightning so miserably, he could barely move anymore. Feng Wuyo sighed at the sight. Suddenly, she waved her hand and picked him up. Come on. Little Snake lay contentedly in her arms, his tail swaying back and forth. After searching for a long time, the two of them finally found a cave. They would stay there for the night. Feng Wuyo took out a torch. Eva, check. There's no demonic aura here. When she looked back, the snake was already sound asleep and snoring. Feng Wuyo looked at Little Snake. You may be secretly plotting against me, yet you still dare sleep so peacefully in front of me? Are you truly that bold? Or are you deliberately trying to make me lower my guard? The sleeping snake rubbed his face against Feng Wuyo's finger. After watching the snake for a moment, Feng Wuyo sighed. Fine, I'll keep you around a few more days. Once I have proof, it won't be too late to deal with you. At that moment, she entered Little Snake's consciousness. She sat on a chair, while Chi Feiqi was tied up below her. You little demon, you really are disobedient. Feng Wuyo wore an extremely confident expression. Even if you tried again, you would still only be defeated by me. Bound up, Chi Feiqi shouted angrily, let me go. Feng Wuyo stepped forward and lifted Chi Feiqi's chin. Just looking at you like this makes my heart ache. A loud burst of laughter echoed through the air. It was a nightmare monster from the secret realm, skilled at invading dreams and controlling its victims. Once the dream ended, it would disappear. The nightmare monster approached and mocked Chi Feiqi. The thing you fear most is actually a woman? Humiliated, he angrily shoved the nightmare monster away. You ugly freak. How dare you enter my dream? Get out. At last, Little Snake woke up. What a horrible nightmare. Chi Feiqi jolted awake, still frightened. That dream was insane. This snake cannot possibly be that pathetic. He looked around and discovered that Feng Wuyo was nowhere to be seen. When he suddenly turned around, he saw a sword at his throat. Feng Wuyo had her eyes closed and was about to attack. Chi Feiqi panicked and hissed. Feng Wuyo, had you gone mad? She immediately swung her sword, but Chi Feiqi dodged. Feng Wuyo, do you really want to kill me? Little Snake continually dodged Feng Wuyo's sword strikes. Why are you forcing me to do this? Chi Feiqi transformed into his human form to block her attack. He struck the back of Feng Wuyo's neck, causing her sword to fall as she collapsed. He stretched out his arms to catch her. Above them came a series of rustling sounds. He lifted her up and said, that monster must have gone to call for reinforcements. If we don't run now, when will we? Feng Wuyo slowly opened her eyes. What happened to me? The moment she opened them, she saw a handsome young man before her. Who was he? Feng Wuyo was lying on a bed and gradually regained consciousness. As soon as she opened her eyes, her head felt as though it were splitting apart. Ow, it hurts! Feng Wuyo abruptly sat up and looked around the room. Where are we? Weren't we in a cave? Seeing Feng Wuyo wake up, Chi Feiqi looked at her and said, we were attacked by a monster in the cave. You fainted, so I carried you away. I wandered around and somehow found this wooden house. Hearing Little Snake suddenly speak so fluently, Feng Wuyo rushed over, grabbed him, and asked anxiously, you can talk now? You were injured earlier. I wanted to save you, but I couldn't. Chi Feiqi realized that he had been exposed. Damn it! The snake slapped his own head and said, while I was feeling despondent, a stream of foreign spiritual energy rushed straight into my crown, allowing me to gain intelligence. This must be my opportunity within the secret realm. Hearing him, Feng Wuyo thought, what he says does make sense. But before I fainted, I seemed to remember seeing a human, not a snake. Feng Wuyo asked Little Snake, then how did you carry me away? Hearing Feng Wuyo's question, Chi Feiqi guessed that she was deliberately testing him. After thinking for a moment, he said, I ate a pill that let me grow larger, then used my tail to drag you away. When Feng Wuyo heard that Little Snake had dragged her the entire way with his tail, she exclaimed, you dragged me all that way with your tail? Chi Feiqi answered eagerly, that's right, that's right. After thinking it over, Feng Wuyo felt that the snake's explanation was fairly reasonable. No wonder my neck hurts so much. Chi Feiqi immediately pressed his advantage, showing off. Luckily, I was quick-witted in that emergency. Otherwise, you would still be in that shabby cave. Suddenly, Feng Wuyo lunged forward, grabbed the snake by the neck, and said with a terrifying expression, "You are not allowed to drag me again next time. Do you hear me?" Little Snake promptly came up with another idea. "Then next time, I'll bite you and carry you away in my mouth." Hearing Chief Feichi's bold suggestion, Feng Wuyo broke out in a cold sweat. That's not allowed either. Seeing that she rejected his idea, Chief Feichi thought of another one. "Then Feng Wuyo immediately cut him off. "You'll what? You have no sense of respect for your elders." As she spoke, she smacked the snake on the head. Then Feng Wuyo smiled brightly. "Call me master. Let me hear it." Little Snake was so angry he nearly smoked from the head. What is wrong with this girl? Has she gone crazy? Ever since entering the secret realm, she has been acting strange and mysterious. And she wants me to call her master? I am the dignified leader of the Snake clan. Do I have no pride at all? Seeing that the snake had stood there silently for so long, Feng Wuyo asked, "You refuse? Is it because you already had a master before? Or because deep down you think I am not worthy to be your master?" The snake hastily cried, "No, that's not it." Feng Wuyo suddenly covered her face with both hands and began to cry. "Perhaps we were never meant to be master and servant. Those wonderful days we had before were probably only my imagination." Good and evil battled within Chi Feichi's mind. "Damn it, I came here for revenge, not to accept a master. But for the sake of my revenge plan, what is so bad about calling her master once?" After a fierce internal struggle, Chi Feichi trembled all over, closed his eyes, and forced out a single word, "Mas." Just as Feng Wuyo waited to hear the word master, a series of booming sounds shook the entire room. Looking outside, they saw an enormous black shadow standing at the door. Feng Wuyo cried out in terror, "A ghost!" The ominous sounds continued. After thinking for a moment, Feng Wuyo guessed that the owner of this wooden house had returned. Chi Feichi hid behind her, carefully observing the huge black shadow. A humanoid figure rushed inside and shouted furiously, "You two thieves! How dare you trespass on my territory? Do you know where this is?" Feng Wuyo looked at the black shadow fearfully and said, "Senior, we did not mean to offend you. We only entered to take shelter because the wooden house was empty. If you mind our presence, we will leave at once." The old man rushed in and said, "This is my wife's favorite wooden house. She hates strangers entering it. If she learns that you have been here, she will surely blame me for failing to guard it properly and throw me out. But if I kill you, all traces of your stay in this secret realm will disappear, and my wife will never know you were here." Hearing the old man's threat, Feng Wuyo became extremely worried. She thought, "I once read in miscellaneous records that the most terrifying thing in a secret realm is not encountering high-level demonic beasts, but encountering people. Aside from those who enter the secret realm, there should be no living people inside." Chi Feichi was also frightened. "If I could maintain my human form, perhaps we would have a slight chance of surviving." Seeing the old man rush toward them, Feng Wuyo hurriedly stepped forward to stop him. "Senior, please stop. Wait." She immediately seated the old man at the table, poured him tea, and began massaging him. "This junior has a bold suggestion. It can both help you keep this from your wife and make up for our offense." The old man found her words pleasant to hear. He glanced at her and said, "Go on, let me hear it." Chi Feichi sensed that something was not quite right and thought anxiously, "Does Feng Wuyo really have a way out of this? What nonsense is she going to say now?" Feng Wuyo immediately explained, "Senior, your cultivation is astonishing. Erasing the signs of strangers in this wooden house must be as easy as turning your hand." Pleased by the praise, the old man replied smugly, "Naturally." Feng Wuyo immediately clasped her hands and said earnestly, "I knew it. Not only is Senior highly cultivated, but you are also kind-hearted. Since Senior is willing to help us, Little Snake and I are willing to remain here and serve you wholeheartedly." Hearing Feng Wuyo's words, Chi Feichi was utterly stunned. Had this little girl gone mad? Anyone alive in a secret realm was certainly no ordinary person. Staying beside this old man was practically asking for trouble, wasn't it? The old man was delighted by Feng Wuyo's proposal and burst into laughter. "Little girl, I haven't even agreed yet, and you've already put a label on me. Unfortunately, whenever couples wandered into this wooden house before, my wife and I would keep them here to help tend our medicinal herb garden. But you two won't do." Feng Wuyo immediately replied cleverly, "As long as Senior is willing to let us stay, we could be husband and wife." As she spoke, she stroked the little snake in her hand. Chi Feichi was horrified by Feng Wuyo's words. What nonsense are you talking about? The old man was not so easily fooled. Little girl, don't try to deceive me. One of you is a descendant of the Phoenix clan, while the other belongs to the Snake clan. Even if the heavens split apart, you could never be husband and wife. Feng Wuyo sighed. It turns out we truly are not husband and wife yet. To be precise, we were only one step away from becoming husband and wife. As she spoke, she gently stroked the little snake's head, making them appear extremely intimate. Looking at the snake, Feng Wuyo cursed inwardly. Stand there doing nothing? Cooperate a little snake. The snake merely wore a blank expression and did not move at all. How annoying. Then she suddenly burst into tears. After Little Snake and I met by chance, we got to know each other and fell in love. But before long, my elder brothers discovered us. They forced me to give up Little Snake. Boo-hoo, I've suffered so much. Hearing Feng Wuyo's sobs, the old man seemed somewhat moved. You abandoned your clan for the one you love? Feng Wuyo hugged the snake to her chest and replied tearfully. That is why we were hunted by our entire clan. While fleeing, I accidentally stumbled into this place. Poor little snake exhausted all his spiritual power protecting me, so he can no longer maintain his human form. Chi Feiqi was terrified by her masterful acting. She truly was the queen of acting. If she was going to act, why make it so lovey-dovey? The old man smiled and raised a hand to his nose. It is rare to see anyone brave enough to pursue true love as you two have. Smiling, he pointed at the snake. Very well. Since the worldly people do not understand how precious true love is, this old man will lend you a hand. Feng Wuyo beamed at him, thinking success. Success. I actually got away with such absurd acting. What luck. The old man rose and slowly walked away. I can let you stay here and hide for a few days. I can even help your snake husband regain his human form. But the old man paused, then gave a lecherous smile. I have one condition. Feng Wuyo immediately asked. As long as it is good for Little Snake, I could do anything you want. What is your condition? Little Snake looked at Feng Wuyo, suddenly full of confidence. When Feng Wuyo acted, even he could not tell truth from falsehood. She looked no different from before, when she had been so attentive toward him. Don't be afraid, Little Snake. Thank you for giving it to me, Little Snake. It's beautiful. Don't worry, Little Snake. I'll protect you. Remembering those moments, Chi Feiqi began to wonder. Could it be that her kindness toward him before had all been an act? The old man opened the door and walked outside. There are many demon beasts in this secret realm. My wife and I survived by offering the medicinal herbs in this garden to the master of the secret realm in exchange for peace. However, every night, thieves come here to steal herbs. Your task tonight is to guard these herbs and ensure they are not stolen. If you succeed, you may stay. After hearing his instructions, Feng Wuyo stepped forward and asked, what if we fail the task? The old man suddenly laughed in a terrifying manner. Those herb thieves will kill you. Then he ambled away with his cane. I'll be leaving now. I hope to see you both again tomorrow. The old man left Chi Feiqi and Feng Wuyo behind, both deeply worried. While pondering his words, Chi Feiqi suddenly looked at Feng Wuyo and shouted, Run now. If we fight that old man, we still have a 20% chance of winning. Feng Wuyo replied, We can't run. Do you know what it means to encounter a living person in a secret realm? Either he is a puppet of a high-level demon beast, or he is the master of this secret realm, holding the lives and deaths of everyone within it in his hands. Chi Feiqi found her words reasonable. If it was the first possibility, they still had hope of survival. If it was the second, then they were doomed. Feng Wuyo leaned close to his face. You only recently gained intelligence, yet you know quite a lot. The young man was startled and hurriedly found an excuse. The Snake Clan also has several secret realms for cultivation. I'm not qualified to enter them, but I have heard some rumors. At that moment, something drifted out of the grass, giving off a fragrance as it fluttered before them. Feng Wuyo's attention was drawn to it. She walked over to the flower, crouched down, and pointed at it. Come here and take a look. What is this? Chi Feiqi took one look at the flower and declared, Pearl-dropping grass. It only bears fruit once every 3,000 years. This is demon-attracting grass, which grows only near demon beast caves. Every stalk is guarded by a demon beast. It must never be planted. Feng Wuyo glanced at him and smiled. To nurse my body, I went to the Phoenix Clan's medical hall every day. I had only heard of pearl-dropping grass before and never seen it. It seems the Snake Clan has grown much stronger now. Even a little snake with no cultivation like you is so knowledgeable. The young man was angered by her jab. If you have something to say it directly. Stop beating around the bush. Feng Wuyo abruptly said, that old man lied to us. If the herbs here truly had to be offered up, those demon beasts would have no reason to risk offending the master of the secret realm just to steal them. A rustling sound came from the thick bushes. Unless the one coming to steal the herbs is not a thief, but seeing the demon beast before them, Feng Wuyo immediately continued that the original owner of the herbs, the beast that guards them. It seemed they were in for a bitter battle against the demon beast. Just when it looked as though the two sides were about to fight, Feng Wuyo tucked the little snake under her arm and ran for her life. Run, hurry, run. Thus began a life-or-death chase between a white wolf and a girl who loved talking but loved running even more. The number of laps had already reached 999. On the 30th lap, she unleashed her snake shadowless kick. In truth, it was simply throwing the snake at the wolf. With tremendous force, the snake shot headfirst into the wolf with a bang, knocking it unconscious on the spot. Enraged at being struck by the Snake Clan's self-sacrificing technique, the wolf let out several howls. As the wolf lunged, it was immediately hit by Feng Wuyo's 99 low-grade immobilization talismans. She sighed in relief. Good thing I was clever enough to exhaust the wolf first. Otherwise, these talismans might not have been able to hold it. Feng Wuyo picked up the snake and said with a bright smile, my rich little snake is quite useful too. Not a single throw missed. Ha ha ha. She then called to the old man. Senior, the midnight task is complete. It is daylight now. You would not go back on your word and let a pair of ill-fated lovebirds like us die in the jaws of a wolf demon, would you? Chief Feichi broke out in cold sweat at Feng Wuyo's words. He had never seen anyone play their cards like this. It was terrifying. The old man approached with his wife, smiling. You are quite good at stirring up trouble, little girl. Feng Wuyo replied, Seniors, the medicinal herbs were not harmed, and the wolf demon has been captured. You will let us pass now, right? The old man looked at his wife and asked, Madam Chiu Yuan, what do you think? His wife replied, It was not easy for this couple to wander here. Husband, let them pass. The old man smiled broadly. Since that is Madam Chiu Yuan's wish, I will naturally comply. This was bad. He was about to revert to human form in front of Feng Wuyo. As soon as the thought crossed his mind, it happened. He transformed into a handsome young man before Feng Wuyo. At the sight of his strikingly handsome face, Feng Wuyo froze in place. Oh heavens, he's so handsome. Noticing her staring at him, Chief Feichi immediately pulled up his clothes to cover his face. Feng Wuyo moved closer and asked curiously, Little snake, why are you covering your face? He gave a cold laugh. I injured my face when I was young. My spiritual power is still weak, so I cannot maintain a perfect human form. Seeing that he was hiding something, Feng Wuyo immediately lunged forward and grabbed his hand, thinking angrily, is there really a wound on his face? Or does he simply not want me to see what he truly looks like? She firmly said, I will not look down on you. Chief Feichi continued explaining shyly, women all like attractive people, and you are even a noble member of the divine clan. I cannot allow your clansmen to look down on me. Besides, Chief Feichi suddenly began to sob. Boo-hoo. Senior, please grant me a mask to hide this disfigured face of mine, so that my wife will not be saddened when she sees it. Watching the two of them act affectionately together, the old man thought, these two are not only deceiving me together, they're deceiving each other as well. This is even more entertaining than the people who came here before. He gave a cold chuckle and walked away. Since I have nothing better to do, I will help you. The old man immediately produced a mask. I happen to have a very beautiful mask. However, it was forged from truth-testing stone. Though it can conceal an ugly face, it also compels the wearer to speak the truth. Snake husband, are you sure you want it? Chief Feichi was utterly shocked by those words and stood silently without saying a thing. Feng Wuyo, however, was overjoyed. Yes, my husband loves looking handsome, so of course it is good if it can conceal his face. She rushed forward and took the mask. Besides, my husband has nothing he cannot tell me. Speaking the truth will not harm him at all. Feng Wuyo took the mask and turned to put it on Chief Feichi. She looked delighted. Husband, isn't that right? The young man was terrified, his face drained of all color. Wife, you are right. The old man's wife called out to her husband. Hearing the woman's voice, Feng Wuyo suddenly turned back in surprise. Why did that voice sound so familiar? The woman commented, "This young couple truly has such a wonderful relationship." Upon hearing her, the old man rushed over and grabbed her hand. What a devoted husband. Yet, seeing the couple's behavior, Feng Wuyo became suspicious. Why did this old woman seem so strange? The woman's face was always smiling, whereas her husband constantly wore a grim expression. Chief Feiqi had finished putting on the mask. He walked over, placed an arm around Feng Wuyo's shoulders, and said, "Wife, I sense killing intent." When Feng Wuyo said nothing, Chief Feiqi turned and asked, "Am I that ugly?" Feng Wuyo casually replied, "You look acceptable." But inwardly, she was praising him. As expected of the snake I raised, even with a mask on, he is still more handsome than everyone else. Chief Feiqi lowered his head before Feng Wuyo. "Have you begun to dislike me?" Feng Wuyo cooperated with the act perfectly. "What are you talking about? We are partners. We do not judge by appearances." After answering, Feng Wuyo suddenly put on a panicked expression. "Quick!" She suddenly pointed toward the wolf demon and shouted, "The wolf demon is trying to run." The moment she finished speaking, the old man appeared in front of the white wolf. Seeing the old man before it, the wolf was so frightened it nearly fainted. It suddenly flopped onto the ground, all four legs twitching as it barked repeatedly. "Woof, woof, 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 woof. What a good dog." The wife walked over, looked at the old man with a smile, and said, "Husband, we happen to be lacking a dog at home. Let's take this little dog home." He smiled and nodded. All right. I will listen to you in everything." The couple held hands and left. Before departing, he did not forget to wave at them. "Madam Feng, snake husband, you have completed the task. My wife and I live opposite the herb garden. We have prepared a house for you. Follow us." Feng Wuyo immediately nodded in agreement. The two followed the old couple. Along the way, Feng Wuyo silently assessed the situation. The old man's wife was acting rather strangely. "You should be more careful." Chief Feiqi said, "I should be the one telling you to be more careful. You stared at that woman for too long just now. That old man looked as though he wanted to devour you." Feng Wuyo asked, "Then what did you call me just now?" Chief Feiqi rubbed Feng Wuyo's head and said, "Your mind is not completely dull after all." Feng Wuyo froze as Chief Feiqi rubbed her head. Had this snake forgotten who was the master and who was the pet? The young man quickly withdrew his hand and coughed a few times. "Your hair was a little messy. I was only fixing it for you." She waved a hand and calmly replied, "Stay alert." Chief Feiqi was extremely surprised by what he had done just now. Why had he instinctively reached out to touch her hair? Then he thought, "It is all Feng Wuyo's fault for teaching me such bad habits." The two entered the old couple's home. The wolf demon clan had been captured and kept as pets to guard the old man's garden. Chief Feiqi sat there gnawing on a bone while taunting the dog. "The meat smells so good. What a pity, though. Wolf husband is only a dog, so he can only gnaw bones and cannot eat meat." Seeing the young man busy teasing the dog, Feng Wuyo leaned close to Chief Feiqi's ear. "Senior told you to feed the dog. Why are you eating chicken legs in front of it?" She continued with a laugh. "Are you being childish?" Teased by Feng Wuyo, Chief Feiqi suddenly raised his voice so everyone could hear. "It is my first time seeing a wolf act like a dog. I was curious." Then he lowered his voice and whispered to Feng Wuyo, "After that old man drove me away, what did he say to you?" Feng Wuyo immediately lunged at Chief Feiqi and grabbed him by the collar. "He asked me some questions about the Phoenix clan. He even gave me a map of the secret realm." Their eyes suddenly met. Feng Wuyo stared at him while Chief Feiqi broke out in cold sweat. A voice came from inside the room. "Madam Feng, snake husband, come in. This old man has something to discuss." Hearing that voice, Chief Feiqi rushed over at lightning speed. "Coming. I'm here." Feng Wuyo held the jade in her hand and thought, at such close range, little snake still cannot tell that the bracelet I am wearing is fake. Seeing Feng Wuyo standing there blankly, Chief Feiqi turned around and called loudly, "Wife, what are you standing there for?" Feng Wuyo snapped out of it and smiled. "I'm coming." The two held hands and left. Inside, the old couple watched them enter. The old man said, "The garden does not need guarding during the day. Go into the Thunder Forest and fetch a piece of thunderstruck wood for me." Chief Feiqi asked, "Is it dangerous?" "My wife and I guarded the herb garden all night and fought the wolf demon. We have exhausted our strength. Could Senior give us another task?" The wife suddenly cast a sharp, cold glance at Chief Feiqi. Feng Wuyo noticed that there seemed to be something unusual about her gaze. The old man took his wife's hand and said, "Deep within that forest is a thunderfall stone, formed from the inner core of the ancient divine beast, the Kuei-ox. I see that Madame Feng's dantian is empty. It may be useful to you." He then revealed an extremely mysterious smile. Whether you go or not, the two of you may discuss it. Then, in the blink of an eye, the old couple vanished from their chairs. Chi Fei-chi and Feng Wuyo sat on the grass in front of the house. Chi Fei-chi said, "That inner core is probably a trap. Do you still want to go?" Feng Wuyo agreed with his assessment. His disciple is even more frightening than he is. What if we get killed on the spot? Chi Fei-chi broke out in a cold sweat at Feng Wuyo's words. That's true, that's true." She gave a cold snort and closed her eyes. "Besides, he said that inner core would be useful to me. I want to go and try." Chi Fei-chi looked at Feng Wuyo. "Even without an inner core, you are still the noble princess of the Phoenix clan. You simply cannot cultivate. Why go to all this trouble?" Feng Wuyo began crying like a child. "Without my inner core, I'll gradually regress into my infant form until I disappear." She lied. "I'm not willing to accept that. I haven't even seen what you look like yet." Chi Fei-chi could only fall silent at her words. Turning his face away, he replied, "I've never heard that losing one's inner core could cause death." Feng Wuyo cried even harder. "That is a secret of the Phoenix clan. How can an outsider possibly know?" The young man nearly turned to stone at Feng Wuyo's words. "I'm an outsider, but she is one of us?" Chi Fei-chi stood up and told her, "Then I'll go with you. We're already here, after all." The two held hands and set off. Feng Wuyo was delighted, repeatedly thanking him. "Little snake, you're such a good person." Then she suddenly asked, "Right? I still don't know your name." He snorted. "After I awakened in the mountains, I followed Taoist Ling Xiu. I never had a name." She happily said, "Then let me give you one. How about Chi Bai?" The mention of the surname Chi startled the young man. "What did you say?" he thought. Could she have discovered something? Feng Wuyo laughed merrily. "Chi, yes. That is the surname of the Snake Clan's leader. It must be a very noble surname. I think Chi Bai sound wonderful. What do you think?" Chi Fei-chi forced himself to appear calm. "I think it is. Very, very nice." A mysterious glint flashed across Feng Wuyo's face. He dared to use the same surname as the clan leader. It seemed this little snake was no ordinary snake. At that moment, the two slowly entered Thunder Forest. The surroundings were cold and gloomy. "This must be the Thunder Forest that old man mentioned, right?" As they walked, Chi Fei-chi suddenly yanked Feng Wuyo behind him and shouted, "Watch out!" A fierce bolt of lightning struck before them, blasting dirt and stones into the air with a terrifying roar. Feng Wuyo's eyes filled with alarm at what had just happened. Though she was frightened, a fragment of memory suddenly flared to life within her. This scene was far too familiar. Could it be that I encountered a heavenly tribulation 2 years ago? Seeing Feng Wuyo's panicked state, Chi Fei-chi said, "I heard that the ancient demon beast, the Kuei ox, can summon wind and rain and control lightning. Let's retreat and come up with a plan before proceeding." He then looked at Feng Wuyo and asked in confusion, "What is wrong with you?" Feng Wuyo clutched her head and groaned. "Something isn't right." The lightning strikes became increasingly violent. Chi Fei-chi looked up. "The lightning is about to strike." Then he elegantly swept her up into his arms. "Excuse me." At that very moment, deep within Thunder Forest, Feng Wuyo lay in Chi Fei-chi's arms as the lightning grew more and more violent. Chi Fei-chi held her tightly, constantly dodging the thunderbolts. Boom after terrifying boom crashed down around them. He looked at her and shouted, "Wake up! We're about to be struck by lightning." Within those distant memories, Feng Wuyo recalled fragments that kept flooding back into her mind. Chi Fei-chi's shouts rang out again and again. "Feng Wuyo, if you don't come to your senses, I'll throw you away." At those words, she seemed to wake up instantly, her eyes flying open. After shouting himself hoarse, he was finally relieved when she woke up. "You're finally awake. You scare me to death." Feng Wuyo raised her hand and stared at it. Chi Fei-chi also looked at her hand, unable to understand what she was doing. While he was watching intently, Feng Wuyo suddenly opened an umbrella right in the young man's face. Smack! Chi Fei-chi cried out in pain. "Feng Wuyo, were you trying to ambush me?" She answered anxiously, "You were standing too close, that's all. This is a lightning-proof umbrella. If it doesn't expand, it can't protect both of us. If you don't want to be struck by lightning, grab it quickly." Chi Fei-chi found the umbrella's introduction too unbelievable and asked skeptically, "Are you sure this tiny umbrella can withstand lightning?" Seeing that he did not believe her, and was still holding tightly onto her. Feng Wuyo pulled away and said, "It needs spiritual power to sustain it. Send your spiritual power into it. If you don't want to be struck by lightning, hurry up." Following her instructions, Chi Feiqi immediately poured spiritual power into the umbrella. Feng Wuyo looked seriously at Chi Feiqi. "I still have some talismans that can enhance spiritual power. Wait while I attach them." The lightning converged in increasingly violent waves, striking directly at the two sheltering beneath the umbrella. One powerful strike made both their hair stand on end. The umbrella was nearly reduced to rags by the strike. Chi Feiqi sarcastically remarked, "Who said this umbrella was useful?" Feng Wuyo wished she could disappear from embarrassment at his mockery. She immediately rummaged through her clothes and said brightly, "Don't worry. Just now it was struck because it did not have enough spiritual power. I have a larger one right here." Feng Wuyo immediately began searching through her pockets. After rummaging around for quite a while, Feng Wuyo finally pulled out a larger umbrella. She opened it and shouted, "Look!" Chi Feiqi stood still, waiting to see what she would do next. Suddenly, the blood jade bracelet on Feng Wuyo's wrist cracked open. "The blood jade bracelet is broken." Feng Wuyo panicked at the sight as the bracelet shattered and fell to the ground. Chi Feiqi thought to himself, the blood jade bracelet was forged from ancient Manhwa stone. A single bolt of lightning could not possibly break it. The bracelet Feng Wuyo was wearing was a fake, without a doubt. It seemed she had long been wary of me. Feng Wuyo was flustered by the situation and tried to divert Chi Feiqi's attention. Smiling, she said, "Sorry, Chi Bai, the bracelet broke, but I'll give you another treasure later." This girl really was an expert at changing the subject. "Right, do you see the Thunderfall stone?" Chi Feiqi suddenly noticed something in the distance. He turned and said, "Over there." That was the deepest part of Thunder Forest. The lightning strikes became fiercer and stronger, repeatedly striking the red umbrella. It appeared that this umbrella could withstand lightning better than the previous one. "We can use this umbrella to get over there." Feng Wuyo gave Chi Feiqi a medicinal pill. "This is a spirit-replenishing pill. It can restore the spiritual power you have expended, though it may slightly damage your mind. We'll be fine once we retrieve the Thunderfall stone and leave." Chi Feiqi immediately nodded. "All right." As they walked, he thought to himself, "Feng Wuyo has lost her former memories, and we are not from the same clan. It is only natural that she is wary of me. Didn't I also want to kill her? We are even." Feng Wuyo was thinking the same thing about Chi Feiqi. Putting everything else aside, Little Snake had never abandoned her since they entered the secret realm. Even when they were in danger, whatever intentions he had toward her, he probably did not intend to kill her. After walking for some time, the two finally reached the Thunderfall stone. "We're here." Lightning struck the umbrella in rapid succession. The closer they got to the stone, the more powerful the lightning became. Chi Feiqi explained, "The lightning throughout Thunder Forest must be powered by this stone. If we take it away, perhaps the lightning will stop." He glanced at Feng Wuyo and asked, "How many talismans do you have left?" Feng Wuyo answered with a start, "Only the last talisman remains. Just one. If this fails, we will be struck to death here." Hearing that, Chi Feiqi immediately rushed forward, pulled her back, and stared at her. "Do you dare gamble with me?" She answered cheerfully at once. "Why wouldn't I dare?" Feng Wuyo and Chi Feiqi slowly approached the stone. Chi Feiqi raised his hand and lifted it from the rock. The instant the stone was removed, the dark clouds in the sky dispersed, and sunlight suddenly appeared. Chi Feiqi and Feng Wuyo were overjoyed. "We did it! We succeeded!" Feng Wuyo turned around just then and discovered someone approaching from behind. A kick came flying at them. Chi Feiqi immediately raised his hand to block it and shouted in alarm, "Who is it?" The old man appeared and seized the stone. "Was it you?" Feng Wuyo was alarmed. "Senior, your cultivation is far beyond ours. If you wanted this Thunderfall stone, it would have been as easy as turning your hand. Why wait for us to retrieve it, only to rob us?" The old man chuckled. "The lightning in Thunder Forest grows stronger when it encounters someone strong. With you two clearing the way, this old man saved a great deal of effort." Feng Wuyo said from behind, "This old man is too powerful. Let's get out of here first." Chi Feiqi turned to Feng Wuyo. "How many spirit replenishing pills do you have left? Feng Wuyo immediately handed all of them to him. This is all I have. He promptly emptied the bag and swallowed all the pills. Enough, enough. How many are you going to take? After swallowing the pills, Qi Feiqi stepped forward. Wait here. I'll go snatch your inner core back for you. Feng Wuyo's face filled with shock at his words, and she stared at him wide-eyed. Meanwhile, in Thunder Forest, the old man raised his hand, still holding the Thunderfall stone. He flew toward the two of them. Within this secret realm, no one can resist this master. The moment he finished speaking, Qi Feiqi shot toward him. The old man's confident expression abruptly turned to panic. What kind of master are you? As soon as he said that, Qi Feiqi lunged forward and, taking advantage of the old man's alarm, used all his strength to kick him squarely in the dantian. Feng Wuyo froze for several seconds. She had never imagined Qi Feiqi was so strong. The old man snorted, his gaze turning sharp. He laughed loudly at Qi Feiqi. You think you can hurt me? Qi Feiqi gritted his teeth. Who cares who you are? Either way, the Thunderfall Stone is mine now. Looking again, the Thunderfall Stone was already in Qi Feiqi's hand. Feng Wuyo was overjoyed, clenching her fist in a triumphant pose. The old man was furious. Do you have a death wish? Qi Feiqi flicked the Thunderfall Stone in his hand provocatively. You want it? Then Qi Feiqi hurled the stone toward the old man's feet. Go pick it up yourself. The stone flew far away, beyond the old man's reach. Unable to bear losing it, the old man immediately flew after it. Qi Feiqi looked at Feng Wuyo and shouted, Little Phoenix, it's your turn. Hearing him call out, Feng Wuyo prepared to leap up and catch the stone. Feng Wuyo, catch it and run. She flew forward and seized the stone. Got it, got it. A blazing phoenix image shimmered around her body. She finally had the stone in her hand, and Feng Wuyo's face was full of joy. But when she looked back, she saw the old man choking Qi Feiqi and holding him under control. The old man laughed at her. Young lady of the Phoenix clan, do you no longer want your spirit pet? You were willing to travel together with a spirit pet, so your relationship must be extraordinary. Can you really bear to watch him die? Feng Wuyo held the stone, looking worriedly at the old man. She could not bear it, but then her face suddenly became remarkably calm. I can't defeat you anyway. If my spirit pet dies, I can just raise another one later. Hearing such heartless words from Feng Wuyo, Qi Feiqi felt somewhat despairing. Was she really that ruthless? The old man's grip tightened further. You sacrifice yourself to draw him away and steal the treasure for her. Yet she does not care about you at all. Qi Feiqi closed his eyes and answered, If you want to kill me, then kill me. Why are you talking so much? Suddenly, Feng Wuyo shouted loudly, Old man. Seeing her reaction, the old man looked exceedingly pleased. She had softened after all. But after that shout, a mischievous smile spread across her face. No, I just wanted to tell you that this phoenix feather is a flying artifact. If you don't kill me, I'll be leaving first. She stuck out her tongue teasingly at him and flew away. Bye-bye. The old man was furious enough to explode. I must kill you, you little brat. His eyes burned with rage as he ground his teeth, unwilling to accept this reality. He immediately struck Qi Feiqi with his palm. Qi Feiqi coughed up blood and cried out. He had planned to have Feng Wuyo leave the secret realm after he stole the stone for her. Why did it upset him so much that she had done exactly that? Still, at least one of them had escaped. As he fell, he suddenly heard a loud shout. Qi Bai! Feng Wuyo turned back to save him. She rushed forward and shouted, Qi Bai, give me your hand. Qi Feiqi immediately reached his hand toward Feng Wuyo. As she flew toward him, their hands met. Feng Wuyo pulled Qi Feiqi toward herself and hurriedly said, That damned old man is pursuing us too closely. I don't have time to call my brothers for help. There is one way to stall for time. Do you dare try it? Qi Feiqi asked in surprise, What way? Feng Wuyo explained, That old man wants the Thunderfall Stone, so it must be extremely useful. Hurry and eat it. The young man was shocked by her incredibly bold idea. He immediately put the Thunderfall Stone into his mouth and swallowed it whole. Feng Wuyo was delighted. Good. When that old man attacks later, threaten him by saying you will self-destruct and destroy the stone. The old man had already caught up and rushed over, shouting, Do you think swallowing the Thunderfall Stone can protect you? He reached out with one hand to seize the phoenix feather. Haha, that is even better. Come with me obediently. A dark stream of energy shot from his hand toward the phoenix feather carrying the two of them. The two were horrified to realize they were being pursued. This is bad. The phoenix feather is about to explode. As soon as she spoke, the flying feather artifact exploded into pieces, sending them both flying. Feng Wuyo and Chi Feiqi fell to the ground in a heap. The old man called out, "Bring that ghost creature over and collect their bodies. Lock them up. Tomorrow, we will refine them into pills." "Yes, master." Thus, Feng Wuyo and Chi Feiqi were imprisoned in a dungeon. The two swallowed pills as though their lives depended on it, restoring their health and spiritual power to full. Chi Feiqi asked Feng Wuyo, "Why did you turn back to save me? Were you trying to get yourself killed?" With a mischievous expression, Feng Wuyo replied, "Because I would never abandon a friend." At Feng Wuyo's words, Chi Feiqi raised his head, too stunned to speak. The two sat in a dark cave, where a torch had been lowered to light a large fire. The fire crackled. Feng Wuyo sat across from Chi Feiqi. Seeing his awkward demeanor, she spoke first. "Don't be moved too quickly. Actually, Chi Feiqi coughed several times. "You are the first person who has ever risked her life for me." The moment he said that, the two stared deeply at each other, frozen and unable to say another word. The young man clutched his head in misery. "That was not what I meant to say. It is all because of this mask." Feng Wuyo was drenched in cold sweat, yet she forced a smile. "I should not tell him that I only came back because I could not escape anyway." Feng Wuyo coughed a few times to distract him. "I've thought a way to deal with that old man. Jibai, let's give it a try." Chi Feiqi immediately asked, "What way?" She pointed at his abdomen. "That old man once said that the Thunderfall Stone grows stronger when it encounters strength. He clearly fears you. I'm certain of my judgment. As long as you can convert this stone's power for your own use, we'll have a better chance of winning." Chi Feiqi closed his eyes and replied, in the face of absolute strength. Feng Wuyo rushed over and covered his mouth. "Don't say such unlucky things before all hope is lost. We have to seize every opportunity we can to become stronger. If someone bullies you in the future, your first reaction should be to fight back, not run away." She turned and glared at the young man, making him flinch. "Jibai, do you understand?" The young man nodded repeatedly. I understand. Then try channeling the power of lightning." Following Feng Wuyo's instructions, Chi Feiqi nodded and agreed. With his hands clasped before him, he tried to summon lightning. After a while, an electric current appeared. Feng Wuyo cheered happily. "Jibai, you did it!" The young man immediately demonstrated by trying the one-finger yang technique. He had expected terrifying destructive power, but nothing happened after he unleashed the attack. Embarrassed, he turned aside and covered his face. Feng Wuyo kept consoling him. "It's all right. You're already amazing." At that moment, a man in black entered the cave, carrying a bottle. Two demonic beasts were coiled around him. "Come in quickly." The two immediately turned toward the cave entrance. "It is your blessing to offer your inner cores to our master." The demonic beast kept urging the young man in black. "Master has said that as long as you offer up your inner cores, he can guarantee that your bodies will not die. You can cultivate again in the future, and great fortune will await you. Don't refuse a toast only to be forced to drink a penalty." The scorpion on his body looked toward Chi Feiqi and Feng Wuyo and let out a snort. They laughed savagely. "Xin Lu, Tao Yao, why aren't you reacting? Even if the three of us join forces, we may not be able to defeat that old man. We might as well conserve our strength, lest our spiritual power be exhausted after our inner cores are taken." The scorpion continued, "Xin Lu, what do you think? Aren't you always worried that you'll die once your inner core is taken?" Then he looked at Feng Wuyo and remarked, "There just so happens to be someone here without an inner core." A vine suddenly shot toward Feng Wuyo. "Perfect. Let me see." It seemed that the vine would wrap around her. But a bolt of lightning from Chi Feiqi cut the vine apart. The scorpion on Xian Lu's body fumed with anger and shouted, "You little brat, you dare attack us? Don't act rashly. He is the Thunderfall Stone." Seeing Chi Feiqi's strength, Feng Wuyo immediately stepped forward to boast. "Senior, you have a discerning eye. My Jibai truly can command the power of thunder. He only lacks the final step to break through his cultivation and leave Dream Valley." The scorpion asked, "Do you know who that old man used to be? With him here, even if you were an incarnation of heavenly tribulation, you still could not escape." Feng Wuyo asked curiously, "That old man? Could he be some great Luo golden immortal?" Xian Lu closed his eyes and answered, "That old man was once a descendant of the divine clan and held the rank of high god. He was once known as Hatan. He and his wife, Cheng Shue, were deeply in love. They traveled the world and created this secret realm. They were once very happy. Until 25 years ago, when Hatan killed Chongshua, shattered her body, and imprisoned her soul in this secret realm for eternity. After her death, Hatan's wife became a fallen immortal and lost even her name. Later, he regretted it and wanted to revive his wife. So he carved countless wooden puppets and transmitted power into them, choosing the one that resembled his wife the most to stay by his side. After hearing Xian Lu's story, Feng Wuyo finally understood. But that alone is not enough. Spiritual power alone cannot make a wooden puppet into a living person. That is why Hatan wants to refine inner cores, to give the puppet a foundation for cultivation. Xian Lu smiled and nodded. That is correct. You are very clever, young lady. Feng Wuyo looked up and asked, Isn't Hatan afraid of divine punishment for doing this? Xian Lu looked toward Qi Feiqi. The Thunderfall Stone absorbs the lightning of heavenly tribulation and protects Hatan's life. But the lightning released by the Thunderfall Stone grows stronger when it encounters strength, which is why Hatan has never been able to retrieve it. After hearing the man in black, Qi Feiqi stood motionless, while Feng Wuyo became extremely excited. Looking at him, she asked, Senior, with the Thunderfall Stone and the cultivation of the three of you, what are the chances of defeating that old man? He spread his hands and answered firmly, only about 60%. Feng Wuyo immediately took out a bag of pills and kept tossing them toward the two young men. Then let's begin. I still have plenty of magical artifacts and medicinal pills. I'll handle the supplies for everyone. Smiling, she held up a pile of treasures and looked at Xian Lu. Senior, you know so much about the master of this secret realm. Your cultivation must be high. Today, please teach my Ji by how to absorb the power of the Thunderfall Stone. Xian Lu laughed. You little girl, when did I ever say I would join forces with you? He rubbed Feng Wuyo's head, then focused on Qi Feiqi. Seeing Qi Feiqi's expression, he suddenly removed his hand from Feng Wuyo's head. The young man broke out in a cold sweat. Fine, helping you is helping ourselves as well. 2 days later, a thunderous boom erupted. Feng Wuyo cried happily. We did it! A huge hole appeared in the cave ceiling. Feng Wuyo clapped joyfully. Jibai, you're incredible. Xian Lu shouted, Watch out! She asked in surprise, What is it? Before she understood what was happening, rocks began pouring down from overhead. The falling rocks somehow missed all three of them perfectly. The scorpion complained, The ground is too hot. Too hot. What is that old man doing? Xian Lu replied, If I'm not mistaken, he wants to turn this cave into a furnace and refine us. The old fiend outside was using all his strength to cast techniques at the mountain range. The scorpion angrily wanted to fly out and pinch him 1,000 times. You damned old man. You said you only wanted our inner cores, not our bodies. You broke your promise. You have no shame. The old fiend laughed loudly. In recent years, you have secretly collected Chongshue's 10 soul fragments in an attempt to restore her body. I am merely fulfilling your wish and allowing you to reunite. The cherry blossom in Xian Lu's hand spoke unconsciously. How does he know? The scorpion grew even more dissatisfied. Xian Lu, if we seize the soul-guiding stone now, we may still have a chance to live. Qi Feiqi reached for Feng Wuyo's hand and held it tightly. Don't let go. Without hesitation, she grasped his hand. Xian Lu shouted, Hong Shui, Tao Yao, move together. The cave entrance gradually began to crack. The old fiend was still smug. Xian Lu, even if you seize the soul fragments, you only have one path left, death. But reality dealt him a resounding slap. The cave entrance exploded into pieces. The old fiend covered his face against the dust in disbelief. Feng Wuyo and Qi Feiqi flew out leisurely and landed lightly. He whispered, We're safe for now. But Feng Wuyo did not care and quickly released his hand to search for something. Qi Feiqi looked disappointedly at his empty hand. Then he saw Feng Wuyo hold a brocade pouch before him and became alarmed. What is it? She answered. This brocade pouch contains one part of High God Chongshue's soul. Senior Xian Lu told us to find the final soul fragment, but where should we begin looking? Qi Feiqi calmly replied, I know. Feng Wuyo was confused. What? He took out an item and recalled Xian Lu's instructions. I once cultivated beside High God Chongshua. This horn can help you find her aura. Guided by the horn, they looked into the illusory space. Feng Wuyo seemed uncertain. Then how do we go? The horn flew toward a spatial rift. Feng Wuyo shouted doubtfully, Isn't that a spatial crack? But immediately afterward, Qi Feiqi scooped her into his arms. This is an emergency. Forgive me. He carried her into the rift. We have arrived at the North Heavenly Pool secret realm. The horn continued its search for the high god. Feng Wuyo shivered. Jibai, it's so cold here. You look for her. I'll warm myself up first. Chief Feiqi was worried. It's too dangerous to act alone. Come, I'll carry you. Thoughtfully, he crouched down with his back toward her. Get on. Soon, Feng Wuyo was sitting properly on his back. Don't you Snake Clan members hibernate? Aren't you sleepy in a place this cold? Chief Feiqi replied flatly. If I hibernated here, I would die. Feng Wuyo silently complained, burying his wife in such an extremely cold place. That old man is truly perverse. Suddenly, Chief Feiqi stopped. A benevolent high god smiled at them. Young ones, did Xian Lu send you to find me? Feng Wuyo glared fiercely at her. Aren't you the wooden puppet beside that old man? The woman explained gently. That is a wooden puppet carved in my likeness. I'm a true body. By the way, you brought the brocade pouch, didn't you? Give it to me. Feng Wuyo remembered what she had learned in the Divine Clan's mountain. The Divine Clan can clearly preserve their youthful appearance. So why does that old man look so old? Xian Lu had answered. He once promised Chengxue that they would grow old together. After Chengxue died, his hair turned white. He deceived himself and others, pretending to be an elderly couple with a wooden puppet, as though he and Chengxue had fulfilled their vow. Remembering this, Feng Wuyo shouted. When High God Chengxue died, her appearance did not change at all. You are a fake. Jibai act. The old woman's expression changed. Chief Feiqi's face turned solemn. Feng Wuyo held the woman tightly while he angrily drew his blade. You already have the Thunderfall Stone. You should leave the secret realm. Why interfere in the affairs of my husband and me? Without further hesitation, she lunged at them. Give me the brocade pouch now, and I will spare your lives. Chief Feiqi formed an incantation seal. He took control of the sword in the old woman's hand. Feng Wuyo whispered, We do not know this old woman's cultivation. We should not confront her head-on. In a moment, I'll deliberately provoke her and distract her. Find an opening and take her down. Chief Feiqi agreed. All right. As soon as she said it, Feng Wuyo began taunting the old woman. Old hag, even if you get the brocade pouch, so what? You are nothing more than Chengshue's substitute. Chief Feiqi stuck out his tongue to join in the provocation. Enraged, the old woman threw a weapon at Feng Wuyo. You have a death wish. He shouted, Watch out! Feng Wuyo instinctively fell backward. She glared at the old woman with hatred. You fight dirty. Feng Wuyo was furious and cursed. You insignificant wooden puppet. You managed to take human form. Yet instead of cherishing the chance to cultivate properly, you threw yourself at that damned old man. You rotten piece of wood. You are not even fit to be firewood for Mount Tengu. The old woman grew increasingly enraged. You wretched girl, I'll tear out your tongue. Chief Feiqi seized the opportunity and gathered power into his hand. His palm strike sent her flying. Feng Wuyo proudly exclaimed, Jibai, well done. The old woman lay motionless on the ice. Feng Wuyo sighed in relief and picked up the pouch from the ground. It's over. Yet a wooden thorn suddenly pierced neatly through her hand. Kifeki panik. Feng Wuyo. She gritted her teeth in fury and glared at the old woman. You're fighting dirty again. The old woman smiled smugly. What a pity. I nearly killed you. Still, having a wooden thorn pierce your flesh is not a pleasant feeling, is it? Then a scream rang out. This time, Chief Feiqi truly sent her to her grave. He said grimly and furiously, Shut up. You dared to hurt Chief Feiqi's beloved wife. Are you tired of living? Then he stood up. Feng Wuyo's body was feeling extremely unwell. Before her stood two Chief Feiqis. His mood sank as he noticed something was wrong. Who are you? He shook Feng Wuyo hard. Feng Wuyo, what is wrong with you? She shook her head dazedly. I'm Phoenix. I've been having headaches in this secret realm lately. Could those blurry scenes be memories from before? And why did that voice in my head just now sound so much like Jibai? Thinking of this, she looked at Chief Feiqi. Jibai, have I met you before? He immediately denied it. No, he had originally intended to deny it, but then changed his mind. It seemed he could not wear this mask for much longer, and he could not remain by Feng Wuyo's side either. Then he carefully treated her wound. Bear with it. I'll tend to your wound. She murmured uncomfortably. Her expression was truly terrible. At last, the wooden thorn was pulled out. Feng Wuyo said softly, I'm fine now. Jibai, go see whether that old hag is really dead. Be careful. She might play dirty again. He shouted angrily. Bandage the wound first. Feng Wuyo was startled. Why are you suddenly so fierce? You're like a wild beast, he replied. The Snake Clan are inherently treacherous beasts. She said timidly, I didn't mean it that way. He coldly answered, only. Feng Wuyo hurriedly added, Ji Bai, I do not hold prejudices against other clans. You know that. He closed his eyes calmly. You do not need to explain yourself to me. Feng Wuyo worriedly asked. Then why are you angry? Chi Feiqi was in an extremely foul mood. It has nothing to do with you. Hearing his cold words, Feng Wuyo lowered her head in silence. Chi Feiqi turned away. I'll go take a look over there. He quickly walked toward the old woman, only to see the ice crack open. Before he could react, a snowman seized Feng Wuyo from behind. He shouted, Feng Wuyo. He watched helplessly as the snowman dragged her away, gradually out of sight. The ice rapidly closed again. He dropped to his knees in despair, feeling around frantically. Gritting his teeth in anguish, he called out, Feng Wuyo. Chi Feiqi relentlessly pounded the ice until his hands bled. The jade pendant on his body shattered as well. Consumed by pain and utterly lost, Chi Feiqi sank into his memories. Little snake, look, from now on, you and I will be friends with matching protective talismans. Recalling this, he clenched the jade pendant and mournfully said, Feng Wuyo, I have not settled our score yet. You must not let anything happen to you. Don't die in this cursed place. His entire body was now enveloped by a formation. The old woman was not dead yet. She was truly hard to kill. Mocking him, she laughed loudly. A fake couple pretending to be deeply in love? Do you think that drawing a formation with your blood and transferring your lifespan will let you exchange yourself for her? How ridiculous. No one can break through the ice ceiling barrier. She is doomed to die. Chi Feiqi spat out a mouthful of blood and collapsed painfully onto the ice. In his daze, he saw Feng Wuyo's playful appearance. Chi Feiqi, didn't you want revenge? Didn't you want to kill me? Now that I'm dead, why aren't you laughing? He murmured, I won't kill you anymore. Come back quickly. Half an hour later, Feng Wuyo bent down to pick up the soul pouch. Feng Wuyo watched in confusion as mist rose from it. What is this? Before she could understand, her body was suddenly swept into a vortex. Her eyes filled with panic as she was helplessly pulled downward by the soul fragments. Countless souls flew toward Feng Wuyo. She helplessly called, Ji Bai, but he was still unable to reach her in time. She only vaguely heard Chi Feiqi calling, Feng Wuyo. In the danger, she snapped her protective jade in half. Yet she still fell below. Her body slammed hard onto the ice, and Feng Wuyo coughed up blood in pain. Though her entire body ached, she stretched out and took the 2 pieces of jade. What kind of cursed place is this? Even my protective talisman cannot resist it. Beside Feng Wuyo's bloodstain, something miraculous appeared. Countless floral patterns merged into one design. An immortal Chongxue appeared behind it. This is the grand ceiling formation Ha Tan left behind. Feng Wuyo was startled by the sudden voice. She looked up at the woman and asked, Are you High God Chongxue? Chongxue answered gently, Yes. Then she silently looked ahead and used magic to create a 3-dimensional image. Within it, Chi Feiqi was struggling to move. Chongxue added, He activated the life exchange formation. Once it succeeds, he can exchange positions with you, trading his life for yours. Feng Wuyo was shocked. Why? Seeing Chi Feiqi's weak, helpless body collapse onto the ice, Feng Wuyo thought to herself, Chi Feiqi clearly sees me as an enemy. Why was he willing to sacrifice his life to save me? Chongxue smiled and said, He treats his friends very well. That is why he was willing to risk his life to save you. Wuyo recalled how he had looked after transforming into a snake and lowered her head in thought. Chi Feiqi truly had wanted to kill her, but he had only acted once. Thinking further, she remembered how, even amid the dangers of the secret realm, he had never shown any killing intent toward her. On the contrary, he had always protected her. Since Chi Feiqi treated her this way, she should sincerely regard him as a friend too. She then touched the space where Chi Feiqi lay silently beneath the ice and silently resolved that, once she left the secret realm, she would definitely help untie the knot in his heart. At that moment, Chongxue spoke. Someone is coming. I'll take you out. Wuyo immediately took her hand. Thank you, senior. Otside, atan sailenti persu Swanlu. He landed neatly before him. Xinlu, I deliberately let you leave so that you would lead me to the Thunderfall Stone. Huh, you actually let your guard down to this extent. Seeing it was him, the wooden puppet cried out, Husband, save me. Yet in the next instant, a sword pierced through her head, leaving her eyes wide with terror. Chong Shui said disdainfully. Disgusting. At her words, Hatan and Xianlu both turned to look at her. Her expression turned cold as she raised her hand and circulated her power. Atangwestand, Chong Shui, how can it be you? The sword had returned to her hand. She replied coldly, Hatan, you changed your heart back then. Rather than agree to a peaceful separation, you murdered your wife. How could I possibly leave in peace without seeing you dead? As soon as she finished speaking, she attacked him. On Wuyo's side, she anxiously ran toward Qi Feiqi, calling out loudly, Qi Feiqi. She sat beside him and gently shook his shoulder. Qi Feiqi, why are you spacing out? I'm fine now. Hurry and get up. Hearing Wuyo's voice, he opened his eyes and smiled faintly. Even in death, I can't rest in peace. What illusion did you create, Feng Wuyo? You're no good bird. His words left her speechless. Then she decisively slapped the tactless fellow in front of her. Qi Feiqi stared at her in surprise, his face full of question marks. Wuyo angrily pointed at him and scolded, Qi Feiqi, who are you calling a bad bird? But he suddenly sat up, grabbed her hand, and anxiously asked, Does your hand hurt? She froze on the spot. Little Qi Feiqi happily pressed Wuyo's hand to his cheek. It hurts, it hurts. Then he gazed at her gently and asked, You're real? You're all right, aren't you? Wuyo sighed helplessly, affection and amusement in her eyes, then pinched his cheek. I'm Phoenix. She rubbed Qi Feiqi's head. Just now, my blood drove those soul fragments to gather together, then brought me to the space where the High God's final soul fragment was located. What about you? How are you? Xianlu's loud voice suddenly echoed from somewhere. Look at how unreliable he is. Qi Feiqi, Hatan has evaded heavenly punishment for years. It is time to use the thunder summoning technique I taught you. Xianlu had appeared before the two of them, clearly at a rather inappropriate time. Hearing this, Qi Feiqi went to help. Before leaving, he instructed them, I'm going to help High God Chong Shui. Help me look after her. Xianlu waved dismissively. We understand. Go on without worry. Qi Feiqi headed toward Chong Shui, but did not forget to wave goodbye to Wuyo. Wait for me to come back. She helplessly waved back. What did he mean by asking them to help him look after her? Xianlu answered, Can't you tell? He looked at Qi Feiqi and delivered a shocking remark. Your little snake demon likes you. Snow continued to fall within the North Heavenly Pool's secret realm. Xianlu repeated himself. Your little snake demon likes you. Wuyo stared blankly. Who did you say? Xianlu pointed at Qi Feiqi. Him. He likes you. When she suddenly turned to look at him, Xianlu was startled. Wuyo found it impossible to believe. That can't be. Qi Feiqi and I are just friends. Xianlu grinned smugly. Would you trade your life for the life of an ordinary friend? That seemed to make sense, and Wuyo froze. Xianlu eagerly added fuel to the fire. Besides, friends can like each other too. She clutched her head as her thoughts spun wildly, then swiftly pinched his beak shut. Stop spouting nonsense, he protested weakly. Then look over there. Following his direction, they saw Chong Shui and Hatan still fighting, one attacking and the other defending. Wuyo rubbed her chin thoughtfully. High God Chong Shui is only in a soul state, yet she can still suppress that nasty old man. Chong Shui successfully wounded him, and Hatan was clearly at a disadvantage. Xianlu continued. That is because after that old man became a fallen immortal, his cultivation was damaged. Later, he spent a great deal of effort turning that wooden puppet into a spirit. Naturally, he is no match for High God Chong Shui. On Chong Shui's side, her face remained cold and emotionless as she stabbed him once more. Although injured, Hatan continued to curse. Are you satisfied now? Only then did hatred show in Chong Shui's eyes. She shouted harshly. How could these minor wounds compare to the pain of being betrayed, murdered, and sealed away by you for 100 years? Hatan, I want you to repay every single thing you have done. Behind them, Qi Feiqi suddenly spoke. High God Chong Shui, step back. She turned to look at him. Hatan's expression turned panicked. Qi Feiqi was gathering his inner power and condensing lightning magic. Atanguasti no time. He crushed Chong Shui's sword and gathered a mass of black energy in his hand. Xianlu, what are you trying to do? Seeing Hatan preparing to attack him, Xianlu panicked slightly. But Hatan's scheme failed when Chong Shui struck his hand with her palm. The attack veered away in another direction. Chong Shui said coldly, You have avoided the heavenly lightning tribulation for years. I want you to experience it for yourself. Xianlu anxiously bit his nails and paced back and forth. That little lightning of yours is nothing compared to the suffering that old man caused when he deceived you and little Phoenix into retrieving the Thunderfall Stone. On Qi Feiqi's side, a powerful force had gathered in his hand. Xianlu stared in disbelief. Then he looked at the still-dazed Wuyo behind him and came up with a brilliant plan. He leaned close and added a few well-intentioned words into Qi Feiqi's ear. Little Phoenix nearly died just now. At those words, little Qi Feiqi's face darkened, and the power in his hand grew several times stronger. Xianlu danced with delight. This really works. If we're doing this, we might as well go all the way. He added a few more words. You two nearly ended up separated by life and death. You almost never saw little Phoenix again. The person at the center of it all still had no idea what was happening, while the one being provoked was already furious beyond measure. Xianlu began his separated by life and death recital for little Qi Feiqi's enjoyment. Only you could step forward for her. Little Phoenix nearly died just now. You two nearly ended up separated by life and death. You almost never saw her again. Hearing those words, Qi Feiqi's hair stood on end with boundless fury. The lightning power in his hand grew stronger and stronger. Qi Feiqi opened his eyes and seized the moment. He sent it shooting directly into the sky. The path of the Thunderfall Stone was filled with incomparably dark, murderous intent. Wuyo stared in stunned amazement. The more Xianlu watched, the more impressed he was with himself. Fortunately, little Phoenix had not died. Otherwise, this brat might truly have pierced the heavens. Hatan could only flee desperately, but he could not avoid the lightning magic. The first strike nearly made him lose his soul. His spirit became chaotic as he screamed in agony. No, I just didn't want to separate from you. I'm Fine. Why are you treating me like this? Chongxue found him utterly disgusting. She flicked her fingers and mocked him. Ridiculous. He fell to his knees before her and called helplessly, Schwer. Hatan choked with tears and reached toward her pleadingly. Schwer, I have already received my punishment. For the sake of the husband and wife bond we shared hundreds of years ago, can you forgive me? Chongxue smiled coldly. Forgive you? Then she withdrew her hand. In your dreams. Xianlu sighed in relief. It was finally over. Suddenly, someone coughed up a mouthful of blood. It was Qi Feiqi. His body could no longer endure the strain. Xianlu cried out in alarm. Little friend Qi. Wuyo stood frozen in place, unable to react. Only then did Wuyo come to her senses. Fearfully and urgently, she cried, Qi Feiqi. He weakly fell backward, and Wuyo rushed toward him at full speed. She successfully caught his frail body. Qi Feiqi. Without delay, she began sending her inner power into him. Qi Feiqi, wake up. Her heart sank as she watched Qi Feiqi without even blinking. Xianlu came over to support him. Today, little friend Qi both drew the life exchange formation and summoned heavenly lightning. He has expended too much spiritual power. You were previously in Chongshue's sealed domain, so your spiritual power is weak. Let me do it. Wuyo looked at him wearily. Please, senior, for the sake of Mount Chiwu, please save him. Xianlu swiftly placed his hands on Qi Feiqi's back and sent spiritual power into his body. Rest assured, even without Mount Chiwu's name, I would still do my utmost to save little friend Qi. The cherry blossoms on the snowy mountain suddenly bloomed. After a while, Qi Feiqi slowly opened his eyes. Seeing this, Wuyo immediately asked, Qi Feiqi, you're awake? She finally relaxed when she heard him say, I feel much better now. But then her eyes filled with trembling tears as she glared at him resentfully. You scare me to death just now. Then she burst into loud sobs, leaving little Qi Feiqi flustered. Wuyo instinctively threw herself into his arms and cried her heart out. Qi Feiqi was still too stunned to react, unsure what to do. Then a tender, unconcealable smile suddenly appeared on his face. Qi Feiqi softly comforted her. Little one, don't cry. Aren't I all right now? At that moment, Xianlu's words echoed in her ears again. Your little snake likes you. Her little heart immediately denied it. She was only worried about Qi Feiqi's safety. There absolutely could not be any other meaning behind it. But then she panicked. What if Qi Feiqi misunderstood because she had acted so boldly? Still in his arms, Wuyo's face had already turned red. Her mouth fell open in alarm. No. She could not do anything that would make their relationship awkward. Why had she thrown herself into his arms just now? How was she supposed to free herself from his embrace now? Chi Feiqi innocently pulled her away and asked, Feng Wuyo, what is wrong with you? Embarrassed, she glanced around nervously. Suddenly, a loud noise behind them caught both their attention. Wuyo lost her balance and fell backward before she could react. Fortunately, a warm hand caught her. Chi Feiqi quietly said, Be careful. The air around them gradually turned pink with the color of budding love. Seeing the two of them awkwardly avoiding each other's eyes, Xian Lu and Chongxue smiled faintly. Chongxue said, You should leave now. To escape the awkwardness, Wuyo changed the subject. Hi God, Chongxue, what happened? Chongxue answered solemnly. Back then, Haten used this entire secret realm to suppress my soul. Now that I have broken the seal, this place will soon collapse as well. She looked at them both and continued, Help me reconstruct my remnant soul, and I will cast a spell to send you away. The items in these 2 boxes may help answer some of the questions in your hearts. Chongxue smiled gently. Remember, you may only open them after you return. The 2 accepted the boxes and looked at each other. Then Chongxue circulated her power and opened a path for them. Reluctantly, she pressed her cheek against Wuyo's and said gently, Go. Xian Lu was no less enthusiastic, slinging an arm around Chi Feiqi's shoulders as he laughed. I hope that when we meet again, we can drink at your wedding feast. Just don't use wine steeped with scorpions. A moment later, Chongxue and Xian Lu waved farewell to them. We will meet again if fate allows. Wuyo and Chi Feiqi warmly waved back. The scene shifted to Mount Qiwu. Laughter and conversation came from within the Qiwu Divine Palace. The 5th princess had returned safely from her trial. Her elder brother lovingly rubbed her little head. I knew little Wuyo could do it. Wuyo excitedly recounted how Chi Feiqi had cared for her throughout the trial and made a great contribution. Her brother asked in confusion, what contribution could such a tiny snake possibly make? Besides, since you returned with it, I have not even seen the snake. Don't tell me it took the trial reward from the secret realm and ran away? Hearing someone slander Chi Feiqi, Wuyo angrily pummeled her 4th brother. 4th brother, don't talk nonsense. Little Snake was able to transform in the secret realm, and he protected me. Another brother narrowed his eyes and said thoughtfully, He can transform? Her 4th brother seemed rather displeased. Folding his arms, he said, What does he look like in human form? I should go have a look. But Feng Wuyo immediately protested with a pained expression. 4th brother, don't scare Chi Feiqi. I have to ask whether he is willing to let everyone see what he looks like after transforming. Meanwhile, Chi Feiqi was reclining on a high tree branch, intently studying the box in his hand. He suddenly recalled Chongshue's earlier words. Inside the box is half of the heaven-observing mirror. Each of you has one half. Put them together, and you'll be able to glimpse heavenly secrets and see the truth you wish to know. Out of curiosity, he opened the box, but the truth before him broke his heart. Seeing Feng Wuyo drive him to his death, Chi Feiqi's expression suddenly turned cold. He decisively closed the box. The truth was clearly right before his eyes, yet he was afraid. He tucked the box into his sleeve and bitterly reminded himself, the path to ascension has already been destroyed once. I cannot let her destroy it a second time. With that thought, he looked into the distance and made a decision. No matter what the truth was, he could not remain at Mount Qiwu any longer. Just as he was preparing to leave, he ran into Feng Wuyo. The moment she saw him, she brightened. Ah, Chi Feiqi, so you were here. The image from the box still haunted him, so he remained silent. Feng Wuyo swiftly leaped up and sat beside him. How are your injuries? After leaving the secret realm, have you felt that the spiritual power in your body has become much more abundant? Her words startled him. His spiritual power had indeed increased considerably. All of it used to maintain his human form. But how did she know? As he questioned everything, she excitedly gestured and said, My eldest brother said that an increase in cultivation is a hidden reward of the secret realm. My cultivation has increased quite a bit too. He merely gave a quiet acknowledgement. Remembering the main matter, she clasped her hands, her eyes shining. All right, my eldest brother wants to meet you. Would you be willing to let him see what you look like in human form? Of course not. Of course not. But he completely ignored her and turned his face away. Wuyo was utterly confused. What was wrong with him? He seemed unhappy. After thinking for a moment, she took out a new mask and offered it to him in an attempt to please him. Here, this is for you. A mask. At his question, she nodded. Don't wear that mask forged from the Thunderfall stone anymore. This mask does not have any magical support, so wear this one from now on. Then she cautiously tested him. Earlier, you said you had a scar on your face. That was just an excuse, wasn't it? Your true form does not have any injuries. He was startled, but did not deny it. Seeing that, she continued, I also know you have another purpose for staying by my side, but I can feel that you treat me well, so I am willing to let you stay. I hope that one day, you and I can be honest and sincere with one another. He was filled with doubt. How could she so calmly accept someone of unknown origins? So he finally asked why. She answered sincerely, you treat me well, so I'm willing to be friends with you. Isn't that good? Feeling somewhat displeased, he challenged her. Will you become friends with anyone who treats you well? If Han Qing treated you well, would you also? Before he could finish, she frowned and snapped. Chi Fei Chi, what nonsense are you talking about? He flinched, clutching his head as it throbbed painfully. The Thunderfall stone was provoking him again, stirring up emotions he could not control. He could not stay with her any longer. Thus, he decisively refused. I do not need any mask, and I do not want to meet your eldest brother either. After saying that, he jumped down from the tree branch, intending to leave. She hurriedly called after Zibai, but when he did not answer, she leapt down after him and ran up to grab his sleeve. What is wrong with you? Is your injury not healed yet, or are you feeling unwell? Let me take a look at you. He suddenly flung her hand away and said coldly, I want to be alone. His expression was difficult for Wu Yo to accept. She threw the mask in her hand onto the ground. Fina, if you do not want this gift, there is no point in my keeping it. I might as well throw it away. With a heavy heart, she turned and left. Only after she was out of sight did he bend down and pick up the mask. His eyes darkened with sadness. I am sorry, Feng Wu Yo. I have to leave. As he spoke, he put on the mask she had given him. At that moment, a sharp pain surged from deep within his heart, making his entire body tremble. He dropped to his knees in agony. It hurt so much. His face instantly flushed bright red. Unable to endure the torment, he collapsed. So uncomfortable. It's hot. His snake tail was about to emerge beyond his control, and just as he expected, it revealed itself. Seeing the change in his snake tail, he immediately realized that he was about to shed his skin. Looking at the lake before him, he decided not to leave Mount Chiwu just yet. He could only enter the water to ease it first. Without hesitation, he plunged into the nearby cool lake. Unaware of what had happened to him, Feng Wuyo returned to her room and tossed and turned, unable to sleep. Even her pet noticed something unusual. Master, you cannot sleep? You just returned from the trial. Aren't you tired? Did that snake provoke you? Wuyo froze at those words. Seeing her expression, her pet realized it had guessed correctly. It grabbed its tiny sword in its beak and flew off angrily. I'm going to settle the score with him. Feng Wuyo immediately sat up and stopped it. Come back. Her pet flew about indignantly, scolding him. So it really was him. Did he bully you in the secret realm? Feng Wuyo shook her head vigorously. Her pet changed its question. Then did he steal your credit and betray you? Wuyo sighed. No, her pet looked utterly baffled. Then what is wrong with him? She walked over, took a cloak, and draped it over herself. Sometimes he treats me very well, and other times he is very cold. Looking up at the vast sky, Feng Wuyo continued softly. Sometimes it seems like he likes me, and other times it seems like he does not. Hearing that, her pet became so flustered that it dropped with a thud. Ichi likes who? Wuyo hurriedly caught it, then glared at it darkly. If you dare tell anyone about this, I will turn you into a feather rug. Understand? Overwhelmed by her glare, the pet broke into a cold sweat and trembled. I will absolutely keep it secret. Only after hearing what she wanted did she release it. The pet circled around her in confusion. But if he likes you because you are capable, why are you upset? Even if he does not like you, it would not affect you at all. As if realizing what it meant, Wuyo blushed and turned away, denying it vehemently. I'm upset only because I do not like others affecting my emotions. Besides, we still have not found the inner core. These matters will only distract me. Her pet delivered another devastating blow. Then why do you not make things clear to him? It suddenly acted like a learned scholar and began analyzing the situation. I know, you are afraid that if you reject him, he will lose a friend. But you are also afraid that if you continue treating him well, he will misunderstand your feelings. Is that right? Helpless before his deduction, Wuyo could only reply, to brush it off. Suddenly, it offered a suggestion. I have a way to help you speak boldly without making him feel awkward. Would you like to try it? Weo sat down, slightly tempted. Would that work? What is it? Her pet winked and took out a bottle of Forget Sorrow wine. This is Forget Sorrow wine. Ordinary people get drunk after just 1 cup. With your alcohol tolerance, I think 3 cups will be enough. Everyone says that wine loosens the tongue. When the time comes, just make things clear to Zibai. If he is smart, he naturally will not make things difficult for you. Weo was somewhat persuaded. Really, her pet answered with certainty. Our intelligence team reads storybooks whenever we have nothing else to do. That is how it always goes in the stories. So trust me. Holding the bottle of Forget Sorrow wine, she hesitated briefly. But because she wanted to salvage their relationship, she decisively tilted her head back and drained the entire bottle. Meanwhile, he was still in the lake, shedding his skin. Fortunately, the shedding process finally went smoothly. He lay exhausted on the water's surface. His plan to leave Mount Chiwu had been ruined by this incident. When snakes shed their skin, they temporarily went blind at first. He could not leave Mount Chiwu now. The cold water could only slow the shedding process for a while. I need to hide myself first. He closed his eyes, raised 2 fingers to his lips, and murmured an incantation. Borrow forms to transform forms. Truth and falsehood, falsehood and truth. But a sound behind him interrupted his spell. Who is it now? Feng Wuyo appeared, holding a wine bottle as she staggered toward the lake. Looking at him, she mumbled, Zibai, Zibai. Wuyo was astonished by the changes in his body. Her eyes widened as she called his name again. Zibai. Under her fixed gaze, he quickly withdrew his tail and prepared to flee. But Wuyo was 1 step faster. She jumped down and tightly hugged his tail. Got you. His face stiffened as he cursed. You reckless fool. Wanting to teach her a lasting lesson, he wrapped his tail tightly around her and lifted her high into the air. Weo cried out in terror. Her face pale, she said, It is too high. Zibai, put me down now. Only then did he come back to his senses. She grinned and waved at him. It's me. It's me. He held his head in confusion. She had been so angry earlier. Why had she come back to find him now? Lost in thought, he did not release her in time. Still bound tightly, Weo kept striking him with her hands. Zibai, I feel sick. Let me down. When he did not respond, she helplessly bit his snake tail hard. He did not dare look directly at her. He must look utterly indecent like this. He could not let her see him. He then set her down on the shore while concentrating on casting a hypnotic spell on her. All things into the dream. As soon as he finished speaking, the spell rushed toward her like a labyrinth. Half awake and half drunk, Weo abruptly sat up and fiercely grabbed the spell with her hand, shouting, Ha! Just like that, she crushed his hypnotic spell to pieces in her hand. Her cheeks flushed as she smiled. Do not even think about hypnotizing me. Then she jumped into the lake again and lunged toward him. He shouted anxiously, Feng Wuyo, do not come over. Go back. Ignoring his attempts to drive her away, she rushed over and grabbed his robe. What if I refuse to go back? He asked cautiously. Why, you are not afraid of me? She giggled and answered without thinking. Of course I am not afraid. I'm shedding my skin now. Before long, my entire body will rot away. When I am neither human nor ghost, will you still not be afraid? Her hands touched somewhere on his body as she replied loudly, I am not afraid. Startled by her sudden touch, his entire face turned crimson. Her improper hands brushed against his muscles as she said softly, Before I came here, I told everyone not to come near this place. I will stand guard for you while you shed your skin. Every time she touched him, his heart beat faster and his body grew hotter. Unable to bear it, he grabbed her hand. Do not touch me. Her actions would only provoke thoughts he should not have. He murmured, You are drunk. She did not deny it. Instead, she said, When people are drunk, they speak the truth. I have something to tell you. Hearing that, he felt a trace of anticipation. What is it? Weo immediately began admiring his looks, greedily touching his face. Hee, you are very handsome. He laughed softly. Is that all you wanted to say? Under the influence of the wine, Weo spoke bluntly. There is more. I know you like me, but I cannot like you. Her words sent him crashing from the clouds to the ground. He stared blankly at her. Weo's face and voice carried a faint sadness. But I do not want to lose a friend like you. At the word friend, he gave a cold laugh. Friend. Suddenly, he took a lock of her hair and said, Your friend is feeling very unwell right now. She asked innocently, Then is there anything I can do to help you? He began coaxing her. My clothes will interfere with my shedding. The process has temporarily blinded me, so I cannot see anything now. Help me take them off. Feng Wuyo was startled. Take off your clothes? He nodded, his voice full of temptation. Yes, take them off. Wuyo slowly followed his instructions. Noticing an unusual change on his chest, she tightly squeezed a place she should not have touched and exclaimed in surprise. Her grip was not particularly strong, yet it sent a strange sensation through his body. An involuntary sound escaped his lips, and he seized her hand in discomfort. Do not touch me carelessly. The two of them were getting closer and closer, so close that they could hear each other's heartbeats. As if bewitched, Wuyo looked at him and gently touched his lips. Zibai, may I kiss you? As she spoke, she leaned closer toward her target. He stiffened all over as though he had turned to stone. The drunkenness washed over her, making her let go of all restraint and do as she pleased. Zibai, you are so handsome. Though he desperately wanted to accept, he was still wary, so he turned his head to avoid her kiss. Yet Wuyo refused to give up and successfully planted a light kiss on his cheek. Afterward, she laughed proudly. Hee, I kissed you. Not wanting things to go too far and spiral out of control, he knocked her unconscious. Looking at her, his heart was filled with tangled emotions. What have I done? Remembering their intimacy just now made his face turn even redder. He had deliberately seduced her, yet he was the one who panicked. He carried her slowly to the shore and whispered, though he knew she could not hear him. Feng Wuyo, now is not the best time to resolve our grievances. Wait until I'm strong enough. I believe that then, any grudges or hatred will no longer be a problem. He hooked his finger around hers and swore, wait for me to return. If you do not say anything, I will take that as agreement. He carefully placed her in a nearby pavilion. He covered her with his own robe, gazed at her longingly for a while, and only then left. The next morning, the howling wind startled her awake. Zibai. But the only response was empty space. There was no one there but her. Realizing she had been abandoned, Wuyo angrily returned and pushed open the door to her room. Bang! She paced around furiously, venting her anger on the table. She could not believe she had raised such an ungrateful snake. Then she suddenly froze as an image appeared in her mind. She had kissed his cheek yesterday. Wuyo's limbs went weak. She could not believe such a thing had happened. This cannot be my memory. While she was lost in despair, her pet suddenly flew in through the window with urgent news. Master, there is new intelligence. The scouts have discovered the whereabouts of the Snake Clan's leader.